Hello, hello, and welcome. I am so happy you're here and so incredibly grateful that this video found you. You can think of this class as your microdosing 101. So whether you are a seasoned microdoser or you're here to just learn what microdosing even means today, I can guarantee this class will serve you. So I just want to start off by very briefly introducing myself before we dive all into it. My name is Christy Nault. I am the founder, formulator, and CEO of MicroFlow. MicroFlow is truly the best microdosing supplement company out on the market, the cleanest, the purest, most high vibrational microdosing supplements you will find. You're going to learn all about it today. In addition to being the founder of MicroFlow, I am a root cause health practitioner. I have worked in the holistic health space for over 15 years. And I want to just kind of share the difference between how a lot of people view holistic health compared to what I do and explain to you why that matters and how microdosing is really helping to facilitate a whole new level of healing in the people that I work with. So I assume that you're here because you have an interest in more natural forms of healing. I'm sure I could assume that about you, right? And when people start to explore natural health, the natural progression is they get interested in like naturopathic medicine, functional medicine. Okay, great. However, how I see that is functional medicine operates quite identically to the Western medical system that most people are trying to step away from. So in functional medicine, a lot of people will spend a fortune in labs, just more expensive labs, and they'll get diagnosed with a whole laundry list of things from Lyme to mold to parasites and different viruses, on and on and on. And a practitioner will typically throw them immediately into a detox or killing protocol. So if they tested for Candida, here's your Candida protocol. That's not how I operate. Detoxification is an important part of a root cause healing methodology. However, most importantly, we truly need to address the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual reasons as to why we became ill and imbalanced in the first place. The physical, the emotional, the spiritual reasons as to why our body became so hospitable to these infections and overgrowths in the first place. And I'm here to tell you that well over half of that healing puzzle is emotional in nature and really rooted in our subconscious patterning in our nervous system. And we're going to talk all about that today and how microdosing genuinely is the absolute best tool that I found in my over 15 years experience to help people facilitate healing at the root of all roots, which is your subconscious. This conversation is going to go so deep, and I'm really excited. My classes tend to be lengthy, and this is because this isn't an easy topic that you can just go on Google and find a bunch of information for yourself. There are obviously legality concerns, and there's just not people bringing all of the pieces together to teach with psychedelics as a model of healing. Some people use them recreationally, that's fine. And some people like to think of it as a quick fix, right? Just like as we're popping a pharmaceutical, people like to kind of replace the pharmaceutical with the microdose or the psychedelic. And that's not really going to be the answer either. So I'm here to share so much. This video is going to be time-stamped. So if you need to pause it or stop it at any point, you can come back to the place where you left off. There's also going to be a transcription. So, if you want to refer to this video later, but you don't want to watch the entire video, again, you can just go through and read it and highlight. But I am going to cover it all. So if you or anyone you know has any questions about microdosing, this is the video. Feel free to share it. Again, thank you so much for being here. So I just want to share the flow of today's class, the different topics that I'm going to cover, and then we're just going to roll with it. So today, like I said, this is your basic 101 of what is microdosing. We're going to start there and we're going to get into the nitty gritty. We're going to I'm going to explain all of the benefits. And a lot of people are more familiar with the benefits of microdosing, specifically for mental health. Microdosing is incredible for cognition and mental health. We'll get into all of that, but I'm also going to really expand on that and explain how microdosing, in my opinion, is the future of medicine. It is not just for mental health, it is for our physiology, for our hormones, for so much more. And really, there is no separation. What's biological is psychological and vice versa. It's all connected. It's all one. There is no separation there. And then I'm going to talk about how microdosing can really help you heal at the nervous system, subconscious level. We're going to get into consciousness and spirituality and money and so many different angles. I'm going to share my personal journey with microdosing because it's important. I feel like we really learn through storytelling. And you're probably wondering how I went from, doing this work for so many years to then founding a microdosing company. And it is quite literally because my reality entirely shifted in 3 months. And I'm like, I have to share this with everyone. So it's a really epic story that I love telling, and we're going to get into that. We're going to be talking about neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, neural manifestation, just, a lot of neurology. And I'm going to, if this sounds like over your head, I will make sure you can understand everything I'm saying. I'm going to break it down, make it simple, and make it tangible so you can take what I am teaching and apply it to your own life. And then, of course, I'm sure you're here to learn about how do we microdose. So we're going to talk about my suggested protocols and rituals, if there's a difference between microdosing protocols for men and women. We're just really going to get into so many things. Of course, safety, contraindications, mixing psychedelics or microdosing, MicroFlow. We're going to specifically be talking about MicroFlow today with medications and what does that look like. I'm going to be sharing things that, again, you are not going to find on the internet, like can you microdose while being pregnant or while breastfeeding, or should you microdose with mushrooms if you're dealing with a mold toxicity already. And hint, absolutely, you can microdose if you are dealing with mold toxicity or candida or some type of fungal infection or overgrowth. And I'm going to explain why microdosing mushrooms was actually the key for me getting over things like fungal overgrowths and mold poisoning and toxicity. So we're going to cover all the gray spaces and just share all of the nuance. It's going to be a really fun conversation. I have to start off by saying that everything you are hearing today is for informational purposes only. This is not medical advice. Do not make medical decisions based on what I'm saying today. So it's always important to refer to your own prescribing physician if you are on medications. And if you've been in the holistic space for a while, you know that I have to say that, right? So yeah, we got to start off with that. And then I think there's a lot of people that still have, the fear conditioning around psychedelics in general, especially mushrooms and even microdosing at these teeny tiny subperceptual amounts. And I understand that because I was once in your shoes. I researched psychedelics for well over 7 years before I even started microdosing. And I get it. We have been conditioned. There are so many reasons as to why, this is the most powerful medicine, but that it's not being shared mainstream as the most powerful medicine. And we're just going to kind of get into all of the conditioning. So we're going to kind of rip our reality apart a little bit. But essentially, I believe microdosing psilocybin is one of the greatest medicines available to us on this earth. It helps us completely unlock and shift out of victim consciousness and understand the creators that we came to this planet to be. We cannot heal as victims. So a huge reason as to why people are so addicted to their pain, their shame, their scarcity, their fear, their suffering. We're going to get into why we're conditioned to be addicted to that. That's all the fear matrix. And that is keeping you in victim consciousness because victims need saviors, right? And the powers that be at this point in time, like when people are in that victim consciousness because they are easier to control. And when we start, seeing that everything that we are taught is quite literally a lie, and there's so much potential and so much abundance, and we have the ability to feel so good and tap into just like this infinite level of energy and health and vitality and creation, it kind of goes against their agenda. So there's so much conditioning we are going to address as well that really kind of feeds into people's fears. So if anybody is still feeling a little bit of fear, like that's okay. That's why you're here. And those are totally normal feelings that I once felt myself. MicroFlow has helped thousands and thousands and thousands of customers the last few years get off of pharmaceuticals, right? And big pharma makes trillions of dollars a year on dependent on people getting sick and staying sick. So again, this isn't, something that's going to be very mainstream when you follow the money trail and see who kind of funds all the mainstream narrative. So without further ado, on my soapbox a bit, we're going to go deep, but let's just start with the very basic. What is microdosing? So when I'm using the word microdosing, or if you hear other people, you can hear people refer to microdosing, and that just means taking teeny tiny micro doses of a specific substance. It originally meant microdosing a psychedelic substance. Now people are talking about microdosing everything, microdosing coffee, microdosing TV time. So it really just means teeny tiny amounts of something. But in this class today, I am referring to microdosing psilocybin. Psilocybin is a magic mushroom, right? It's magic mushies, and it's a psychedelic substance. But microdosing is what I like to call a sub-perceptual amount, which means it's a teeny tiny amount. It is below the threshold of intoxication. So we're not here talking about tripping balls, right? Or going on a big old journey. And I am going to address the differences between microdosing and macrodosing and just, all of the nuances there as well. I'm not against macrodosing, but most people watching this in this moment probably aren't quite ready for something like this yet. So I always like to tell people too that microdosing for a period of time was like the best kept secret for a lot of successful people. And now it's really not. It's not a secret anymore. It is, just flowing into a lot of different narratives. And, you learned about it. You're watching this video. I always say it's the tool that everyone you look up to is using to rewire their minds, upgrade their health, and unlock their greatest potential. And that's really what I'm going to be sharing all about today. So once again, when we're talking about microdosing psilocybin or magic mushrooms, the psychedelic mushroom, but we're not here to microdose to experience a full psychedelic trip. It's a sub-perceptual dose. I like to also refer to them as sober doses. We do not get high. I formulated the MicroFlow blends so you can still drive, work, parent, drive your children, create, just live your everyday life, and with even more clarity, more presence, more connection, not being dissociated, numbed out, escaping, high. This is not that conversation whatsoever. It is a very beautiful journey that brings you more clarity. Okay. So when we're talking about a psychedelic trip with mushrooms, that typically requires about 3 grams to about 5 grams. So if people are going to do a full trip, it's a pretty big dose, 3 grams to 5 grams. When we're talking about a microdose, it's about 1/30th of a gram. Okay. So, my blends, MicroFlow, we'll talk about them today. I'll talk about the dosing and the formulation and the difference between the blends. But my 2 microdosing blends, they're both formulated at 0.1 grams of psilocybin within the capsule, and then it's blended with some really other beautiful herbs. So 0.1 grams is the same measurement as 100 milligrams. And again, that is 1/30th of the lowest dose it would take to trip, or 1/50th of a trip dose. So it is a teeny tiny amount. When we microdose, we're microdosing about 4 days a week. I encourage people to commit to a full 3-month protocol up front. We're going to be covering protocols in depth later. Okay, so most people seek microdosing for all of the really beautiful benefits we hear a lot of people talk about, from just optimized cognition, better mental health, and just an uplifted mood, right? A lot of people are seeking just feeling better because a lot of people are walking around in a haze with a lot of darkness and just really not tapping into their full life force. A lot of people just kind of feel like they're not living life to the fullest. And that starts with our health, and that starts with our brain, and microdosing can really shift that. So I always like to say microdosing, or psilocybin in general, acts as an illuminator. So illumination is what happens when we're working with the medicine, and that illuminates all the quote unquote super good, warm, fuzzy feelings, from, increasing our heart capacity and our love and our connection to ourself, to other people, to our family, to our friends, to our coworkers, our connection to God, source, the universe, our connection to Mother Gaia, Mother Earth, right? It creates connection, and we feel like the web of connectivity to all that is and all that's around us and all that's within us. And you really do just feel grateful to be alive. I like to think of like the illumination happening as like you're seeing life through rosier colored lenses, and you're starting to tap into like all of the beauty and the magic that truly does exist, because sometimes we are so conditioned to like look for the negative. So yes, illuminating all of those really good feelings absolutely happens when we're microdosing. It illuminates our gratitude, our love, our creativity, our abundance. We'll go on and on about this in a little bit. But I want to start off this conversation by saying that microdosing is not meant to be a perfectly unicorn, butterfly, and rosy experience all the time. An illuminator is also going to illuminate our shadow. Okay, so our shadow is things that we don't want to look at, or things that are below our level of conscious awareness. Okay, our shadow typically exists within our subconscious, and we'll talk about the subconscious in a little bit. So within your shadow can be your repressed emotions, childhood traumas, unresolved traumas, right? So we use the medicine for emotional and trauma healing as well. And it brings it up gently, and it brings it up with love. A lot of this stuff is kind of like ruling our health and ruling our reality. A lot of this stuff that exists and it's stewing within our shadow, just because we don't consciously think about it all day, the body keeps the score. The body remembers everything, every memory, every conversation, every interaction, every wound, every trauma, right? And all of that emotional energy is stewing in our tissues and manifesting as physical chaos, and dis-ease and disharmony in our body, in our relationships, and in our life. So it is so important to go into these shadows and become aware of them so we can learn from them and rewire them and alchemize them and heal them and be free from them. So this medicine helps facilitate liberation. And the shadow is not a scary place to be. It really isn't. It can sound so like dark and scary and shadowy, but what I want to share is that within your shadow also exists all of your untapped and unrealized gifts and light codes, and things that you never even dreamed of that could be so great. Gifts that you actually hold are in your shadow too, and you've been too scared to tap into that and put yourself out there and be visible, right? So there's so much beauty that exists within the shadow as well. Microdosing, again, though, it's not about getting high or numbing or escaping. A lot of people do use, substances that are far more normalized, like alcohol, like smoking marijuana. We're going to talk about that today as well. And people use those. They're reaching for these substances to try to regulate because they are so dysregulated emotionally and internally, physiologically, right? So this isn't what microdosing is about. It's about confronting. It's not about escaping. Microdosing is about confronting our fears, our grief, and ultimately the very truth of who we are, because truly only in that raw honesty can true liberation begin. So it is a journey. And, I always say, like, if you are looking for microdosing to just be a pill that you pop every day with absolutely no intention, and you don't want to do like the quote unquote work on yourself, it's probably not right for you. Like, yes, maybe you can pop a capsule and you might feel a little bit uplifted in your mood and in your mental health. But if you are really genuinely here to shift your health, shift your money story, shift your relationships, shift your reality and tap into your creator consciousness, that requires us to work with the medicine. I'm going to teach you how to do that today, and it is such a gift. Again, we cannot heal what we are unaware of, and most of us are completely unaware of what's happening in our shadow, but that shadow is actually controlling us. So when we bring the microdosing as an illuminator helps us bring the shadow to light. It helps us make the unconscious conscious. And it's the best gift you will ever be given in your entire life, because that equals true freedom. And that's most definitely been my story. That's been the story for thousands of MicroFlow customers, and I'm going to share some of those for you today. So the main thing that's happening when we are microdosing psilocybin is we are igniting what's called neurogenesis. And neurogenesis is the formation of new, healthy, resilient neural pathways and neural networks all throughout our nervous system and brain. So this is quite literally rebuilding and healing the brain and the nervous system. As little kids, we were shown commercials on TV that if you touch psychedelics or if you do mushrooms, your brain is going to be fried like an egg, right? And it's literally the opposite. This is one of the healthiest, safest substances ever. Like there's nothing, absolutely nothing and no benefit that I can see to alcohol, right? But it is so normalized, so glamorized in our society. It ruins our brain, damages our liver, just is very destructive to our gut. It's so depleting. It ruins relationships. It's addictive. Um, I could go on, right? But like most people aren't questioning that, and that's just normal. And then something like a psychedelic, especially even in these amounts, gets questioned so much. So we'll talk again about why, and we're going to get deep into the safety, but I do want to ensure you, again, as someone else who's held those fears previously, it is so safe and it is genuinely helping your body and your brain so much. So, speaking again about the differences between macro doses and microdoses. So we're talking about microdosing about 1/30th of what would require like a trip experience. And there is new data coming out that is saying that the neurogenic benefits of microdosing is now so much greater than the neurogenic benefits of macrodosing. So a lot of the studies were previously only done in therapeutic settings on macro doses, large doses, but we're now seeing that like microdosing can actually ignite that neurogenesis, again, the formation of new healthy neural networks and neural pathways in our brain, in our nervous system, even greater than what they ever thought was possible. And the really cool thing is that like we don't need to go out into a jungle or head away to a retreat and take a week off work and work with a shaman, right, and be guided through this big trip. We can do it in our everyday life. It's like in real time integration. It's so cool. A lot of times when people are trying to dive really deep into trauma healing or really deep into plant medicine ceremonies at large doses, like large doses of mushrooms or going to work with ayahuasca, that can be great for some people. But often what happens is Most people are so depleted and don't have the emotional processing tools to even be able to handle the deep nervous system healing, or I'm sorry, the deep like trauma work and the big psychedelic doses. And what happens is it's like blowing a fuse in the body. It's blowing out the circuitry in the nervous system because the nervous system doesn't have the resourcing to be shown all of these overwhelming emotions that can happen at all at one time and knock you out when it's a really big dose. So I always tell people that like the microdosing really elicits the 1% daily shift. And what we're trying to do is just create more and more capacity and resourcing and threshold within our nervous system. And we can slowly expand the threshold of our nervous system so we have the ability to be with those bigger things. And the microdosing really, really, really helps that without being too much too soon at once so we don't blow that fuse. And that's what often happens in the holistic healing space. People want to dive head first into the deepest, darkest, hardest, most traumatic stuff, and it really can like set them back quite quite severely. So microdosing allows you to truly like make those micro shifts with the microdoses so you can handle it all and increase your capacity. And again, like integrate in real time while you're working, while you're, running your family and just like living your everyday life. All right, we're going to talk a lot more about the benefits in the nervous system and that subconscious aspect and neuroplasticity and neurogenesis in a little bit. But before we get into that aspect, I do want to kind of flow into my personal journey with microdosing because that's how I started this whole company and this whole community anyway. It truly started with my own journey. So like I shared earlier, I began researching psychedelics for probably a good 7 years prior to ever starting them. And I knew at one point in my life I would work with them, but I was very discerning. And I really understood that, like, it's important to wait for the medicine to call to you. And I knew that I had a lot to learn first. And I think it's because I've now taken on this big role of holding space for so many people and really being a leader in this industry. And I'm really grateful that I waited until about like 2020 to start all of this. So, when I am recording this class right now, it's 2025. I have been working with microdoses and other psychedelic medicine at this point for about 5 years. So it was really quite wild. I, did a lot of research, but it wasn't on my mind all the time. And there was one specific day that kind of changed it all. I was in my car driving to my job at the time. I was a personal trainer for 13 years, and I was always, working on the side as a health coach and, leading tour. I was into herbalism and Ayurveda back then and just Reiki and breath work. But my main primary form of income for many years right out of college was I was a personal trainer and Pilates trainer. And at the time that I started being called towards psychedelics, finally, I had really outgrown that role as the personal trainer. It wasn't it wasn't lighting me up anymore. Like the time was up. And that's a cool part of my journey that I'll share in a little bit. So I was on my way to work and I just got this really strong intuitive download or ping that I need to start. The time is now. Like I'm ready to start microdosing mushrooms. Like my whole body lit up and I was like so excited about it. So I was driving and I'm like, let me find a podcast. Like, let me get excited about this. So I put on a podcast. I got to work and I shared it with one of my coworkers, with one of my friends. And he's like, Christy, I didn't know you were interested in this. We've never had this conversation before. Like, this is so cool. I'm really into this as well. And in fact, I just got some new microdoses from a friend last night. Like, do you want to try? So the day that it came through was the day that I got the medicine in hand and I started it the next day. And I knew from that very first dose, literally within the first like 10 minutes of that first dose, that my life would never be the same. It was so beautiful. The bliss codes I felt in my body and like just dissolving what I thought to be the truth in my reality in real time. It just like peeled back the veil and opened up this whole new, beautiful, bright world of possibility for me. Um, so I started microdosing. My friend he actually gave it to me in the form of like a chocolate. So it wasn't necessarily a microdose, it was a bigger dose, but I was just like breaking it apart and having like little pieces of it. And as I started working with it, I'm like, I wonder if other people are going to have the same experience that I'm having because I had 100 clients at least at that point, and I'm like, I want to try it with my clients. So I started just kind of like formulating my blends for fun to try with clients. I'm like, if this is working so well for me this quickly, like let's try it with other people. And people were having the exact same experiences. So I, then went on to found MicroFlow uh 3 months later. So or within the first 6 months. I don't remember the exact timeline, but my experience microdosing, I went into it just because I was curious. I wanted to experience it. I didn't have a ton of like specific goals, I guess. My goals were more rooted around what's my life path? How do I create the really abundant life that I know I'm meant to live and kind of get out of um, the job that was really kind of weighing me down. So that was more my intention. It was kind of more about life path and work. And what happened within those first 3 months is that I completely and entirely healed a lifelong eating disorder. That wasn't my goal. That wasn't my intention going into it. But I had really, really struggled with anorexia and just body dysmorphia, body image disorder for so long. Like just fucking debilitating, suffocating levels of perfectionism. That was my whole life. If you might be brand new to me. You might just be learning about me today. And I'm not going to go into my full life story, but there was a lot of childhood trauma. And so my form of adaptation and surviving was to just be as perfect as possible. Because if I am just so good at everything I do, and if I'm so perfect, that's the only way that I can be worthy and I can be loved and I can take stress off of my parents who are dealing with so many big things. And that's what pretty much ruled me my whole life. I was living in my own self-imposed mental prison that I could not get out of. Dark thoughts, destructive thoughts, mental health issues, debilitating anxiety, panic attacks at some point in my life, suicide ideations. It it just there was like this darkness I couldn't get out of, even when I was meditating and journaling and listening to the high vibe everything and doing the affirmations. I needed more help, and I didn't even like understand at the level that the mushrooms could help me see all of that, clear it, rewire it, and just be free from it and turn that pain and darkness like into something so great, turn it into purpose and into light. So within those first 3 months, healed an eating disorder. Um, I completely transformed my marriage. Like the way that this helps you with communication. And for me, it was like the first 6 weeks of microdosing was pure bliss. I think it was the first time in my life that I was able to experience just like, wow, what a gift it is to be alive. So much love, so much gratitude, and just like bliss. I call it bliss codes. And again, I'm like not like high up in the clouds. I'm working, I'm living life, but I just felt so uplifted. I always say microdosing should bring a sparkle to your life. You're not going to feel altered, but it should give you your life that sparkle. And I was absolutely feeling that sparkle. Um, but then about 6 weeks into my microdosing protocol, it started to kind of bring up some repressed anger. And as women, most of us have a lot of that because we've been conditioned to be the good girls, right? Being angry is not ladylike, and there's just a lot of conditioning there. And I'm not saying only for women, like this is for everyone. But for me, I used to tell people I don't get angry. I used to say like, I get sad. I've experienced a lot of grief in my life, but I'm not an angry person. Like I don't get angry. And I thought that was my truth. But lo and behold, just because we don't think it consciously, our body holds it. And the medicine showed me like, hey girl, you do have some repressed anger, and you need to see this and you need to experience it because if you don't, you're never going to move it and it's going to control you. So a lot of it, the anger that came up was around relationships. And I think like there was so many people pleasing patterns that came up for me and just, all of the things. But when the anger started coming up, I thought I was really angry at my partner. And so I'm like, oh, like I'm angry with my partner. And what it taught me is that I was trying to go through life projecting how I wanted my partner to be rather than just accepting them for who they are in her full truth, in her full essence, right? I was like, wow, the things that are making me angry is my own control issues. I'm trying to control how I want her to be, and I'm getting angry when she's trying to show up as the version that I want her to show up as. But if I want to be accepted as like my whole my purest truth, my everything that I am to like the core, the truth, the authentic version of me, I need to let everyone else be the authentic version of them. And it kind of just, this medicine pretty much just held up a mirror back to me. Like everything that I was getting triggered about, angry about, upset about, it was like, here's your mirror. And here's where you're actually holding all of that judgment and those wounds within, which means that you have the capacity to fix that on your own. You don't have to fix other people to fix situations. And it was so beautiful. So my wife started microdosing right away because she just like saw all of the changes that were happening in real time for me. And it was such a beautiful way to just really shift the closeness and really supporting each other. I feel like the medicine taught me unconditional love for myself and for others and just genuine support. And let's create together and let's, not nitpick. Let's like really work on ourselves because when we work on ourselves and we show up as the best version of ourselves, we can make magic together. And that's really what started happening within the first 3 months. It was just so wild. And then all of the stuff with work started happening too. If you know the work that I do, I have this really incredible program. It's my signature root cause healing program called Hormone Glow Up, and it's supported thousands of women. It's helped me become very financially abundant. It's a world-renowned program. A lot of people know the program Hormone Glow Up. It genuinely is the most advanced women's healing program on the market. I dive into physiological healing, emotional healing, subconscious healing, structural healing, environmental healing, spiritual, ancestral. Like I weave it all together in a way that no one has ever done before. I dive deep into people's foundations, their nervous system, their drainage pathways, parasite cleansing and detoxification, just turning up the dial of vitality, healing hormones. It is next level, truly, truly next level, integrated with all of these somatic practices. That program birthed through for me as soon as I started microdosing. So when I was talking, you guys, about our shadow is not just all the dark, scary stuff. Our shadow is that place that all of our unrealized gifts and medicine and ideas and creativity, all of the things that have yet to be birthed, but that want to be birthed through us, that all exists within the shadow. I was able to quit my personal training job, launch my soul aligned business, and go from 6 figures in credit card debt. So, yeah, I was struggling a little bit there with financial stuff and just things were not going great for a period of years. I went from 6 figures in credit card debt to building a 7 figure business in 1 year of microdosing. And I don't share that to gloat, to brag. I should share that to show you what's possible when we get out of our own way. Genuinely, when we rewire our subconscious from scarcity programming to creator consciousness to abundance, right? Like abundance is all around us. A lot of us are trying to like manifest abundance. We are abundant. Abundant exists. Everything is abundant. We're creating blocks to abundance with our own fear and scarcity program. It's like we're creating the blocks from that subconscious place. So when we can rewire the subconscious, we can change everything. We can shift our reality. My business then I launched MicroFlow, and that has been so successful. At first, I was like, I'm just gonna create this medicine for like 50 people, see how it goes. And it took off. And um, God, it's wild to just see the life I'm living now compared to the life I was living like 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I'm living a life I always dreamed big. I really did. I always knew that I wanted a beautiful life and an abundant life, but it's just way better than I could have ever imagined. I've always been a very ambitious and creative person. A funny story I have shared in the past is that, like, I can't remember what year, but like maybe 2018 or something like that. I literally got on Instagram, got on the internet on New Year's Day, and I was telling the world, I am here. I am launching a YouTube channel. This is my year. I bought all of the fancy equipment, lighting, sound, new computer, everything. Like, I had so much knowledge and so much wisdom and so much love to share. And I had people who were thirsty for that information. And I would get in front of my camera and I would just I couldn't do it. I couldn't record. I would pick myself apart. I'd pick my looks apart. People don't want to listen to me. I'm not smart enough. There was so much fear holding me back. I never launched that. So it's like I always had these big ambitions, and fear was the thing that was blocking me from taking these aligned actions on my greatest desires. And now I can speak in front of thousands of people at a time and hold and facilitate really big programs and just do things that honestly, like it's kind of wild. And I really owe all of this to working with the medicine. The medicine, microdosing mushrooms, has just changed it all for me. So I'm kind of getting off topic. I am going to refer to my notes for a second, because I do have a lot to get through, and I want to just, I want to respect your time as well. And I feel like, okay, something that I think is really important to address as well, in addition to, yes, it really helped me heal my nervous system and therefore help me heal my hormones and my gut and like lifelong constipation. And I was doing all the right things already, but like when our nervous system is so dysregulated, it's going to continuously manifest as health symptoms. So it really up-leveled my health in a really incredible way that I'll share about later when we talk about like the physical benefits of microdosing. It helped me unlock my voice. And I feel like I was always so afraid of speaking up. People pleasing like really had me trapped. I feel like a lot of women can relate to this. I wanted to always say the right thing. I wanted to be likable. I wanted everyone to like me. I wanted things to like not cause conflict, all of the things. So I suppressed my voice because you can't live your truth when you're constantly worrying about pleasing everyone, right? And the medicine really helped me unlock my authentic voice and show up fearlessly with courage as the wholeness and the truth of who I am. And that helped me start magnetizing really soul aligned clients. Like my clients were no longer like, ugh, they're not really a match. I'm just working with them for money. No, I don't work like that anymore. Like my clients are now soul aligned, soul sister type clients, and friendships as well. I completely leveled up my circle of women who are supportive, who we all support each other. And like, that would have never happened without microdosing, because I had to show up as my whole self first to really magnetize these beautiful, beautiful friendships. I really just met parts of myself that I didn't know existed, and above all, dissolved so much fear, unlocked a whole new level of confidence and clarity and courage, and just I used to just stew in my own thoughts. If I had to make a decision, it was so hard for me. I had to talk to 100 people first, run it by everyone, and sit on it and go back and forth. And now I'm just like, boom, boom, boom. I can make decisions. I don't have to ask people. I feel confident. Life just, it's easier. It flows. It feels like this beautiful exhale with my nervous system. I unlocked so much dormant codes within my DNA. That's a whole spiritual aspect we'll talk about, but really just became a more intuitive person and more connected to my higher self, to my guides, to life, to spirit, to source. And the mushroom is coded. It's really, really deeply intelligent medicine. So, this story of mine, obviously, like that's why I went on and I created MicroFlow. And I'm like, everyone needs to experience this. We don't understand how good we're supposed to feel. Scientists tell us that 98% of our DNA is junk DNA. which could not be further from the truth. Basically, the truth is that like we don't know how good life can get because most of us are walking around with only 2% of our DNA turned online. But just like I was talking about with like our shadow, it's all of those like unexplored, untapped into things. That's what exists within all of this, not junk DNA. It's actually, in fact, dormant DNA. And when we work with really intelligent medicine like psilocybin, it actually turns on all those light codes. It activates our DNA. And within our DNA is cellular memory, memory from our past lives, from the cosmos, the memory of the codes, the intelligence of our Mother Earth, right? So there's so much intelligence already within us that we don't even understand, and it's just waiting to be turned on. And this mushroom, the mushrooms, the psilocybin is like turning on the light switch. It's like it is like night and day. It really is really crazy. um but this, my experience is not, it's great, it's amazing, and it's not unique. Like this is very common. We've supported, I don't know how many customers at this point, probably tens, thousands, but I'll say thousands. And we have thousands of glowing customer testimonials just like mine. It's so beautiful. So I think I'm going to share some of those toward the end. You can go to the MicroFlow Instagram page. It's at microflow.healing. And if you go through the testimony, why don't I just share my screen briefly before we get into other stuff? I feel like that could be fun. Let me pull this up. I want to share these with you because I want you to know that like my story is not unique. Like this is the experience that so many people have. If I can find the share on my screen, here we go. All right, so let's go down to this video testimonial first, and then I'll show you. Oh, you know what? All right, no worries. I encourage you to go through this one on your own because I have to share my audio, which I didn't do. So let's just, if we go to all of these highlights, this is what I was talking about. You can click on them and you can read thousands and thousands of customer testimonials. They're on our website as well. Is this not going to want to load either? Okay, here we go. I used to, so we have a website at this point in time, but people used to have to message me through WhatsApp. That's not how we roll anymore, but these are all messages that used to come in through WhatsApp. Hi, Christy, I'd love to place a second order. I'm loving the MicroFlow capsules. My period has been a day or two shorter, more predictable. My stomach seems a little better, and most of my creativity is flowing at warp speed. Hoping this all continues. I'm so grateful for your program. Hi, Beauty. Oh my God, I can't tell you how magical my experience has been so far. I love syncing the blends with my cycle. We'll talk about that later. And feel so much more in sync with the natural rhythms of my nervous system, energy, intuition, etc. I feel so calm and elevated at the same time. This medicine has helped wonders with my anxiety too. My creativity is bursting. I am definitely expanding my intuitive gifts. So amazed with this process. We'll reach out with more updates soon because I feel like I'm on the verge of a giant breakthrough. Thank you. And you could just click through them, like just one after the other. There's so many. It's so beautiful. I'm so grateful to be able to share this medicine with so many people. And I really encourage you to look through some of those testimonials to just get a little inspiration for yourself. One of the video I was just going to share with you from a girl, Brittany, the cover of that reel says microdosing saved my life. So you can scroll down my page and find that. But she talked about the medicine, how it saved her from like the darkness that was consuming her, and how, you have to work with the medicine. She was really clear about that, how it saved her relationship as well, and so many different things. And she talked about at the end how it really facilitated like the death of who she always thought she was supposed to be, who society told her she was supposed to be, and it helped her rebirth like the highest version of herself. And I feel like that's a really beautiful segue into our next section of what I want to talk about, which is the fact that fungi is an entire kingdom that lives below our feet, right? Fungi being mushroom medicine. Fungi acts as Earth's decomposer. And it really does facilitate that death and rebirth energy. I want to share a quote with you that I wrote. I mean, let me explain this a little bit first, then I'll share the quote. But like when you think of out in nature, if a tree falls and dies and you go and see it and it starts to get covered with like fungus, right? What does that fungus do? It's there to break that tree down and return it to the soil. And so the minerals can start to accumulate and heal the soil around it, and something new and beautiful can grow from that fertile soil. That's literally what fungi does out in nature. And that's what it does within us as well. It literally decomposes all of the old thoughts, the patterns, the loops, the fear, the scarcity, the ancestral programming, the societal programming, the wounding that exists within us. It decomposes it all and it returns it to fertile soil so we can genuinely rebirth the greatest version of ourselves. It's like it's a medicine for regeneration. And yeah, I'm going to leave it there. We'll skip the quote because again, I don't want to make this too long because there's a lot of fun things to get into. But I share a lot of quotes like that I've written on the Instagram page. So go check that out if you have not checked out our Instagram page. I'm going to grab a little sip of water and we're going to dive into the benefits of why we are choosing to microdose in the first place and how it's going to support us. All right, how are we all doing? I hope we're all hanging in there and you're going to learn a lot from here on out for sure. So there's so many benefits in the realm of the subconscious and the nervous system. We'll get to that in a bit. Okay, I'm going to start with kind of more of the basics. So most people are reaching for microdosing psilocybin to help their mental health and to help their mood, and that is exactly what it's going to do. It also helps people get off pharmaceuticals like SSRIs and benzos and other antidepressants and other anti-anxiety meds or psychiatric meds. There's a section in today's class where I'm going to cover contraindications and also how we go about weaning off meds as well. But it really helps you get off meds and just function as your higher best self. I'm not here to shame pharmaceuticals or meds. Like, there's a time and place for everything. This isn't a this or that black or white conversation because there's a million shades of gray for sure. But an antidepressant isn't healing your depression. It's not healing you. It's numbing you. It's desensitizing you to all of the emotions. So we're not working through them and alchemizing them and shifting the patterns. We're numbing them. Okay. So it doesn't feel so intense, but that's not healing. That's putting a band-aid on something that's just starting to fester even deeper and deeper within the body. And that's why we do see so many other things pop up when we do go on meds, then this new thing pops up, right? So this is a really beautiful way, if you feel called to, and this isn't the path for everyone, to get off some of those more numbing agents and pharmaceuticals that can quite literally just be damaging to the liver, to the gut, to so many different systems in the body, and just help you feel alive again. A lot of people just feel like they're living like a shell of themselves when they're on medication, right? Because it is a numbing agent. So back to the benefits of microdosing, really, in addition to mental health and mood and helping us get off medications and live, just this full life force within our own body, it really helps optimize cognition, brain health, and memory. Psilocybin is very well studied for things like dementia and Alzheimer's. I have a lot of people in this community who have used it for their parents or grandparents or spouses who are dealing with different forms of dementia. And it's been very, very, very beautifully supportive and helpful. So just so cool, again, the intelligence of the medicine and the impact that it has on our brain, which is very different than things that are normalized like alcohol, which just straight up damages the brain, right? It turns on our creative life force energy. When you start microdosing, you'll notice like you just are a more creative human. And that's because human beings are beings of creation and creative. A lot of people are like, I'm more logical. I'm just not a creative person. We're all creative people. Like human beings are creative by nature. We just kind of shut parts of that off, maybe because when you were a little kid, you were told like, you're much better at like math and science, you're just not a creative one, right? And again, it's just the conditioning and things that have been told to us. Maybe it wasn't fostered within us because school does prioritize more like math and science than creativity. So it's going to help you unlock creativity that like you didn't even know that was a part of you. And that is so cool. It definitely helps with focus, with clarity, motivation, getting in your flow state. So for people who have like ADHD, have trouble focusing, that was something that I definitely identified with prior to microdosing. And I also think there's a lot of like different conditioning around ADHD. Like there's a lot of labels thrown around. It's a very, very real thing. I think part of ADHD is part of our genius for some of us. We're not supposed to be living in this box, right? But with that said, the medicine definitely helped me like ring it in and be more focused so I could take all of this creativity and channel it into something that can be useful for other people and for myself, right? To like create a business that helps so many people, but then also is reflective and like helping me generate money and like creating a better life for myself. And with that, I can give back and help more people and animals and like causes that I'm really passionate about and help my family. And like, there's so many things I've been able to do with all of this creative life force. And then also being able to ground it down and stay focused and make something of it. That's just been my experience and the experience of a lot of people. A lot of people can or do get off Adderall as well. So in addition to like getting off SSRIs and benzos, in my opinion, Adderall is one of the absolute most damaging drugs, I will say drugs, on this planet. It is so deeply depleting and dysregulating to the nervous system and to the psyche. It's so damaging in my opinion. And microdosing can not only replace it, it's not even comparable, but like it does kind of feel like a natural Adderall without making you crazy. It's like grounded and connected to yourself and your own real energy, not like fake energy that the Adderall brings in and then just ends up depleting you. So the focus is a really beautiful part of microdosing and just overall increased intuition, heightened introspection and emotional insight. We can all use a little bit of support in the emotional intelligence realm, and the microdosing is very helpful for that. It helps us upgrade our energy and our sleep cycles, right? So when our nervous system is dysregulated, we could feel wired and tired at night. We could feel like just so fatigued all day. There's other aspects as well, right? I'm not here to say that microdosing is the sole thing that's going to fix all of your energy issues because, you know, there as a root cause health practitioner, like there's other very important things that I teach, like nourishment, nutrition, minerals, circadian biology, uh, blood sugar, right? Like there are other foundational aspects, but this can definitely help. And the really cool thing about microdosing is it helps us start operating from our highest essence rather than from our trauma body. And what I mean is that like a lot of people are not doing the things that they know that they quite frankly should do that will help them feel better, whether it's like, you know, not scrolling on your phone first thing in the morning or getting outside enough, right? Or like exercising consistently, eating healthy meals. A lot of people know they should do that and just don't do that because they're stuck in self-sabotage mode. And that's because we're operating out of our trauma body and out of our survival body because our subconscious is addicted to that. We're getting that we're getting that to that in just a second. Woo, tongue twister there. Um, but basically, a lot of people, when they start microdosing, they start to want to eat healthier. They have a more innate desire of like what their body actually wants, which is like, yes, I do want to move my body because it feels good, right? And a lot of people start to pick up and get really consistent with building really healthy habits. So it facilitates, you know, so much more than mood. It's like it lays out this whole new lifestyle for you that feels really easy to stick to because the body, the ego will always reject change. Even if it's good change, even if it's completely healthy for you, your nervous system is wired for one thing and one thing only, which is safety. But safety to the nervous system only means what's familiar. So the nervous system is constantly seeking familiarity, right? And we're going to get into this in a little bit when we talk about the default mode network and how everything is wired and how the psilocybin rewires that. But if you've tried a lot of things in the past, if you've even like a lot of people, new year, new me, right? Like people set resolutions and goals and they can't stick with them because we are quite literally wired to reject anything that's new because new means scary to the nervous system. Familiarity, even if it's shit habits, means safe to our body. So we'll expand on that in a little bit. Going back to the benefits that we can see with microdosing. Again, I talked about this a little bit ago about that connection piece. And another root of all root causes is disconnection. Disconnection from our truth, from our heart, disconnection from other people, from community, disconnection from source, disconnection from the earth, right? Disconnection is truly the root of dis-ease as well. And this medicine brings in connection. It helps us connect back into ourselves and connect more authentically and intimately with other people to have real relationships, not this surface level BS, how's the weather? How are you good? Even when, there's so many other things you want to share. It helps facilitate depth. And that connection is medicine. It really, really is. If you guys have ever read about the blue zones, these are areas across the globe where people have the highest tendency to live to be 100 years old or higher. And of course, as a society, we're constantly analyzing what are they eating? Like it always comes back to food. And of course, food is an important part, but we can't be eating. I live in Chicago, like in the Midwest. I shouldn't have a diet the same as like someone on an island in Greece. Like that's a completely different light mismatch. That's a whole different conversation. There's no one size fits all diet out there. What I'm trying to get at is most of these people in the blue zones value family, friends, and connection over like hustle, grind, work, right? They are very into let's go out for a 3-hour lunch and speak and go for walks rather than driving on our own. And there are very different habits aside from like what these people are just eating day in and day out that have led to this really beautiful picture of longevity in some of these cultures. And it all comes back to human connection with each other and community. And this medicine really brought me my community. It really, really did. And I hope that's the case for any of you who feel lonely. It's like we're always surrounded by people all around us on Instagram, and it's like the time where people feel more lonely than ever. So this helps with connection with yourself and all that is really. And then most importantly, the mushrooms help us access our truth without the filters of our trauma. It helps us shift out of fear, out of survival mode, out of that victim consciousness, and start to understand possibility, courage. Takes us from surviving to thriving. And I think that's what we all want, right? Like, we're not here to just like feel blah. Like, we're not here to just get by. We're not here to just survive. If you are watching this video, I can guarantee you have a desire to break free from that conditioning and build a life where you are fucking thriving. Like, who doesn't want that? It's possible. And the medicine genuinely helps us access that. Helps with deep trauma healing. And then in addition to like the emotional and the mental side and, shifting our reality, I'm sure I'll talk a lot more about that in today's class, but psilocybin is a potent anti-inflammatory. It helps with pain relief. It can help people replace their over-the-counter like Tylenol and Advil. And a lot of customers order MicroFlow if they're having like a surgery rather than going on post-surgical, really harsh, heavy, destructive pain medications. Again, time and place for everything. But a lot of people have replaced all of those things with MicroFlow because it is such a potent anti-inflammatory and it really does help like feel good in your body. It helps with pain relief. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And like I mentioned, microdosing has really helped me to heal from an eating disorder, body image issues, just help me come home to this like beautiful truth of self-love. And that's what it can do for you as well. So let's shift a little bit into this whole talk about, we've talked a little bit about consciousness. And um, I want to expand on it a little bit because a lot of people, if you're taking a capsule, which is what MicroFlow comes as capsules, they're like, the gel capsules with powder inside. We'll talk exactly about what's in there. And people just think like you're popping a physical medicine, just like you're popping an Advil, like you're popping a pharmaceutical, like you're popping a natural vitamin. Like it's not just this physical medicine we're taking. Mushrooms, we have to understand our consciousness, okay? They are the oldest living organisms, or one of the oldest living organisms on planet Earth. These mushrooms have been around for hundreds of millions of years. When so many other species and organisms have gone through extinctions, the mushrooms have survived. The mushrooms, and when they are resilient. They're so resilient. And when we work with the mushrooms, we turn on this really much higher level of resilience within us as well. But more than that, these mushrooms are consciousness. They hold the codes of the cosmos and of Gaia, Mother Earth. They are intelligent, wildly coded medicine that is a consciousness. It's not just like, let me pop this. So we need to work with the medicine like we're working with another conscious being, right? We have to build a relationship with the medicine, is what I'm getting at. And I will talk about that a little bit more when we get into protocols, but something that I want to kind of talk about religion very briefly. I grew up Catholic. I do not subscribe to religion anymore, and no shade to people that do. I think there's no one size fits all when it comes to spirituality. Some people find God in a church through religion. Some people find God in nature, working with plant medicine. Like there's no shame or wrong way. But something I do hear quite often is that people who do subscribe more to religion have a hesitancy around working with things like psilocybin, magic mushrooms, because maybe they've been programmed to believe it's like evil or who knows, like where the hell did that come from? I'm not sure because when we look all the way back into Paleo Christianity, which is like the absolute origin of Christianity, every single Sunday when people would gather, right, at Mass, people see that as like, people go to church on Sundays, and people have been doing that for a long, long time. And it was very different than how people gather now. First of all, it used to be the high priestesses, it was women in front of the congregation channeling. They were channels, they were oracles, channeling the message of God. And when people went up for, holy commute, what, I'm like forgetting the church words at this point, but when they have, the host and drinking the wine, right? It literally used to be they would get a little mushroom and a little swig of ayahuasca. So they were not sitting out in church hearing someone preach about God and cognitively like learning about God. They were experiencing God. So the way that somehow this has gotten twisted throughout the last, throughout centuries, that some people feel like it's not a good thing to do if they have a close relationship with God. This medicine brings you so close to God. And I've never actually met a person who has not said that. Truly, truly. I've always had a close relationship with God and Jesus in my own way. And now it's so much more embodied, and it's so deep and it's so pure. And the medicine has really helped facilitate that as well. So this isn't taking you out of whatever you believe in. Um, it's going to make it more of a felt sense experience rather than like learning about something through like written script or through what your pastor or priest is telling you. It's a very different felt experience of being one with God. And it's so, so, so beautiful. So what I want to say is that the mushrooms are consciousness. When you work with them, it's like if you were to go make a new friend who is a conscious being, relationships require reciprocity. It can't just be one way, right? So when you're working with the medicine, when you're doing your ritual, which I'm going to teach you about, the journal ritual, like address microflow by its name, microflow. Please help me with microflow. I'm asking you to help me bring in microflow. I'm asking you to help me release. Giving your gratitude to the medicine, that reciprocity aspect. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. We want to have that relationship and understand again the medicine, not just as this physical medicine we're putting in our mouth, but as this conscious being. And microflow, when I created it, it came as soon as I'm saying this right now, I just looked at my phone and it's 555. So we've got angel numbers all around us. But when I created MicroFlow, the spirit of MicroFlow came through to me first, even before what I knew the formulations, the physical medicine was. So, if it helps, you can think of it as like an angel, an archangel, like whatever it is, however you view consciousness and energy, just know it's a very high vibrational, light being, conscious being, rooted in the core of source consciousness, Christ consciousness, everything light and holy. And it's so beautiful to work with. Okay. So with that said, we're going to get into some of the stuff that like most people probably found this video for. So we're going to get into the nervous system default mode network conversation. And I'm going to start this off by repeating something I said earlier because this is so important to understand. Maybe even pause this and write this down. But if everybody knew this on an individual level, collective level, there would be so much less suffering and pain and dis-ease and disharmony. I don't know why we're not taught this. But once again, your nervous system is the foundation of everything. It is the foundation of your health. You can diet, you can exercise, you can take the supplements, you can detox all day, all you want to, perfect perfection. But if your nervous system's a wreck, if you have just a lot of unprocessed emotions stewing in your body, you're not going to get better. Your nervous system is the foundation of your health, of your relationships, of your reality. Okay? With that said, you need to understand your nervous system doesn't give a crap about your goals, your ambitions, your desires. Your nervous system doesn't care about what's best for you or what's healthy. Your nervous system is wired for one thing and one thing only, which is safety, right? And as I was saying earlier, safety just means what's familiar, what's been your truth or your reality in the past. So for a lot of people, for example, perhaps they grew up with parents who fought a lot, who had a volatile or tumultuous relationship. Perhaps there was a lot of abuse and they grew up thinking, I never want to be that. I want to create something so much better for myself. Like consciously, they're like, I don't want that. And then they go out seeking the exact same versions of one of their parents, right? They keep seeking, and it's a lot of people who you hear say, like, I keep attracting the same person with the same patterns in a different body, right? And that's when we have to kind of start taking it back to ourselves and put that mirror up to ourselves. Why are we continuing to attract the same crappy relationships, people who don't understand our worth, a lot of people who say like they get cheated on, like they get cheated on in every relationship. I'm not shaming, but like a lot of it comes back down to the nervous system where we are subconsciously, you don't consciously realize you're seeking this. Subconscious is below your conscious awareness. We are consciously seeking what's always been familiar. So quite frankly, most of us are these adults walking around in these adult physical meat suits as little kids because our subconscious was fully formed by the age of 7 or 8 years old, recreating childhood cycles over and over and over again. People who, a lot of people who grow up in scarcity or like poverty tend to create that. It's like the cycles, like we know how cycles work. Or there are people who think they break the cycle, right? And maybe they grew up kind of poor and they went out on to like create more abundance for themselves, but internally they're still like suffocated by scarcity. I know people who have so much money in the bank, but they're so freaking poor still because of their mindset. They're afraid to spend their money, like the money they're afraid to like lose, like they have it now, but they're afraid to lose it. Like they don't know how to be in that state of flow. So scarcity doesn't necessarily mean that you stayed poor, but like it's like your mindset around it. Do you let it rule you? Do you have a relationship where you can spend it and you can trust that it'll come back to you? You're not afraid of like, I finally made it, but what if I lose it? And you're in these fear patterns and it's still controlling you. That's still scarcity, right? So, and that can happen with so many different scenarios in our life, but our nervous system is wired for safety. Safety to our nervous system only means what's familiar. So if we want real change, we need to change things at a subconscious level because you're not going to be able to do it very well consciously. A lot of people are just like sprinting on that hamster wheel of health, of poor relationships, of trying to manifest things, but things aren't, coming to fruition for them. That's because we have to shift at a subconscious level. Okay. So this nervous system patterning, seeking that familiarity, forms what is called the default mode network. The default mode network. Okay. So you might hear it written out or see it written out as the DMN, but it's like basically that part of our brain that is stuck in those rigid, well-worn patterns. So again, even if you know something's not quote unquote good for you, I see this all the time with like people who wake up, the first thing they do in the morning is pick up their phone and they're scrolling TikTok or Instagram or checking email, and then it's bringing them anxiety. They know that's not how we should start the day, right? Or like before bed, they want to create habits of meditating before bed or doing a new skincare routine or reading before bed, but they're just like addicted to scrolling. That's your default mode network, keeping you in these loops that are well-worn neural pathways that your body considers safe because they're familiar. Because the idea to your nervous system of trying something new, like I'm going to start meditation, the body rejects that. It's scary, right? It's new. Anything new equals scary to the body, even if it's the best, most healthiest things we can do for ourselves, right? So, you know, the scrolling is if we want to do something new that our body sees it as a threat and it wants to stay in the familiarity because the familiarity is safe. So we just become addicted. That forms these neural pathways in our brain and our nervous system. That's the default mode network. Default being that's the default that we always fall back to, right? So the really amazing thing about microdosing psilocybin is what it actually does physically in our body is it goes in, the medicine goes in and it softens and it disintegrates. It totally disintegrates the default mode network. Again, so that part of your brain that's responsible for the old, rigid, well-worn patterns, the self-limiting beliefs, that part of us that tells us to stay small, right? Because that's safe and being visible and putting ourselves out there, like that's fear, 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 right? Those repetitive loops, those outdated cycles, really ingrained into our default mode network. The microdosing psilocybin helps us soften and completely disintegrate that. And then it helps us elicit neuroplasticity, which basically a lot of people think like their brain is just, you can't change the brain, which is not true at all. The brain enters a state of neuroplasticity, which means it can rewire, it can form new connections, it can form new healthy pathways that we can ingrain with healthy habits and thoughts, and it creates change. Okay, we rewire our brain, we rewire our reality. The medicine helps us do that. So it completely pulls apart the default mode network, and then it allows us to form new connections. And especially when we're microdosing with intention, as I'm going to teach you shortly, we ingrain those new neural pathways with things that we actually desire in life. It's wild. It's basically like you can think of it as like pushing a reset button, like out with the old, in with the new. It is literally the manifestation of a death and rebirth, and it is how we transform and completely redesign our lives at the subconscious level. So beautiful. Again, I was addicted to chaotic patterns in relationship. I was addicted to being poor. I was addicted to scarcity. I was addicted to feeling like crap and to like, it sounds like self-shaming and it's not. And I'm not like shaming anyone out there. It's just the truth. We are addicted to our own pain, suffering, chaos, and scarcity. Whether you believe it or not, that's how the brain is wired. So if we can use something like psilocybin in microdoses that allow us to live our life and we can create this completely new reality where we are abundant and we are healthy and it's safe to be in healthy, vulnerable relationships with people that treat us really well and we're not chasing crappy people, right? It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I could go on about that, but for time's sake, let's move on and start talking about protocols. I appreciate all of you who are still hanging with me. Again, you can stop, pause anytime you need to, come back to it. I understand that my classes are lengthier, and that's just how I am. I'm a little more long-winded because I like to go into the details. I love to provide examples, and ultimately, I just want to provide a lot of value because this is a topic that it's hard to Google. It's hard to find people who are informed about this. And not only have I been researching this for a super long time, but at this point, I have experience working with tens of thousands of people with the medicine. So there's a lot to share from a different viewpoint, and we're going to get into some of these different viewpoints right about, well, in a little bit. Yeah, right about now, actually. So talking about protocols, people will say, what is the best microdosing protocol? What do you recommend? We do have a dosing page on our website, so I'll screen share our website in a little bit. It has a ton of information, so if you need a quick overview later once you start dosing yourself, just go to the dosing page on our website and you'll learn a lot there. There's no one-size-fits-all protocol, okay? There's a lot of different ways, in fact, that you can dose. How I personally dose, how I started dosing, and how the majority of my clients, students, and MicroFlow customers do the best is with a protocol where you dose 4 days in a row. So we call it 4 days on, and then you take a break and you take like 2 days off or 3 days off. So 4 days on, we'll say 3 days off is probably the most common and the protocol where I have seen the most amount of people have the most amount of success. So that's my favorite protocol. You dose 4 days in a row. I love to dose on like work days, and sometimes I take the weekends off. You can do it however you desire. There's no like perfect one size fits all way. We'll talk about that again, but 4 days on, 2 days off, or 3 days off. You essentially just want to take at least 2 days off a week. Now, that is a little bit nuanced because when you are weaning off medications, there is a period where people, as they're weaning off, they might dose every day for a short period of time. But generally speaking, we want to take at least 2 days off from microdosing every week. Reason being is number one, if you dose every single day, there aren't safety reasons as to why we don't do it. Like, I don't think it's unsafe to dose every day by any means, but you're going to start to build up a tolerance to the medicine, right? Like, it's like if you were to drink alcohol every day, like when you used to have one drink and then started to need like 3 drinks to get drunk. Like that's just a common example people can think of. We're not talking about getting drunk here, of course, but you're going to start to build up a tolerance. So we like to take a couple days off a week so the body doesn't build that tolerance and we can stick with the most minimal dose possible. Now, if for some reason you did have to increase your dose over time, like it's not a big deal. It's okay. But I mean, even from a price perspective, right? If you do have to increase your dose over time, you're going to be purchasing more and you're going to be spending more as well. So that's the main reason. We do not want to build up a tolerance. We want to be able to feel the medicine, feel that sparkle, and literally feel it working every time we dose. So yeah, if you just never take days off, you might start to feel like immune to the benefits because yeah, you just build that tolerance. Secondly is life is all about death and rebirth, expansion and contraction. Even like this beautiful planet we live on, right? Like spring is all about things start blooming, and in summer, everything's in full bloom. It's very abundant. We have food growing. And then, the leaves start falling in fall. And then we go into a winter, which is like a death, right? Everything is cyclical. Everything happens in cycles. The only guarantee on this planet is death and rebirth. And we can't always be in like building, growing. Like we have to have that duality, that polarity of expansion and contraction. So in my opinion, it's important to also take those couple days off a week to allow for some integration. We're expanding and we integrate it, we infuse it, we allow it to become infused into every cell of our body, into every neural pathway, right? So again, I don't think it's a safety thing. I don't believe there's no safety reasons that like if someone dosed every day. I mean, actually there is such thing that's called serotonin syndrome. So It's very, 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 very rare where if you take, it's typically if you were mixing like an SSRI with like higher doses consistently of psilocybin that you can develop that. I've personally never met anyone who has developed serotonin syndrome using the medicine consciously, intentionally, therapeutically, the way I teach it. So, if you Google about serotonin syndrome, it can sound like this big fear, which it's a very real thing to consider because it can cause death, right? But that's not typically with like just microdosing. That's usually when you're combining things and we're doing lots of large doses. So I don't want to say there are no safety issues because, yeah, but they're very minimal. But we do need to take a couple days a week off. So 4 days on, 2 days off, or 4 days on, 3 days off, find your flow. But maybe you don't like that. Maybe that doesn't work for you. Maybe you feel like 4 days in a row is just too much for you. Like that could be a possibility for you. We're all different. Some people really enjoy just dosing every other day. That's great as well. You could dose 1 day on, 2 days off, 1 day on, 2 days off. You can find a flow that works best for you. Maybe you just want to dose 2 days a week or 3 days a week. Now, when we are, and that's kind of how I operate more at this point in my journey because I have been dosing for years. And we'll talk about like, is this something you do forever? The answer is no, not necessarily. Some people want to. I definitely am someone who I enjoy dosing more long term. But some people will just dose for that. I definitely recommend you commit to 3 months up front. And that's why our microdosing, the MicroFlow microdosing bundle is basically like a 3 month supply. We'll talk about that in a second. Commit to 3 months. And I think you should try to start with the 4 days on, like 3 days off. It's going to help you build a lot of momentum. Now, for me, like I said, I'm in a different state and time with the medicine. And I'm probably dosing more like a few days a week at this point. And that's that. So it might change over time as well. Um, so yeah, there's no perfect, you have permission. I just want to give you permission. You don't have to do what I'm telling you to. Do what works best for you. 4 days on, 3 days off. 4 days on, 2 or 3 days off is what most people do best with though. Okay. Um, so coming back to the idea of like the dosing, my MicroFlow microdosing capsules each have 100 milligrams, which is also the same measurement of 0.1 grams. Some people talk about in grams or milligrams. So 0.1 grams is the same as 100 milligrams. That's how much psilocybin is in one capsule of MicroFlow Exude and MicroFlow Surrender. They're both the same dose, okay? We'll talk about the difference about those between those in a little bit. So typically, so a microdose is considered usually 100, about 100 grams, or even, I mean, I don't know if someone would have a lot of benefit with like 50 grams. That would be, I guess, a half of our capsule. But a microdose is technically considered 50, not grams, milligrams, sorry. Speech is getting twisted at this point. 50 milligrams up to 300 milligrams. That would technically be considered a microdose. You might even hear people say 50 milligrams up to 500 milligrams. I think 500, we're getting out of the microdose range there. But our capsules are formulated, our microdosing capsules are formulated at 100 milligrams in one capsule. And I find that to be the sweet spot for the majority of people. Okay? Most people just need one capsule about 4 days a week. Easy enough. We'll talk about how to use the different blends in a little bit. But that's not the case for everyone. So I would say that's like, I don't know, 85%-ish of people. People will ask me, does it matter like height, weight, gender? I believe that your dose is more based on your neurobiology, so your bio-individual neurobiology, rather than height, weight, and gender. I have some like tiny women who find that they do much better with actually 2 capsules. I think it's been very, very, very rare throughout the years that like someone has needed 3 capsules. Again, out of like thousands and thousands and thousands of customers, that's like maybe 2 women ever. But yeah, some women do like 2 capsules. So I can't say 100% of women just need one, but the majority, a good 90% of women probably do good with 1 capsule of MicroFlow. And there's again the exception of tiny women might need two. And then a lot of people will say, like, men, I always recommend starting with just one. And larger men, some of them do need like two capsules. Some of them even dose with our theta blend, which is a little bit stronger of a blend. It's still considered a microdose. Talk about it in a little bit. Some men dose with that. But then I've worked with, we've had male customers who are, 200 plus pounds, and they do great with one capsule. So there isn't a rigid rule book here of like, if you weigh this and your height is this and you're this gender, take this dose. The only way to find what I call your sweet spot dose, the only way to find your sweet spot dose, and that's the dose you feel best at, is to experiment. So we always start obviously on the lower end. We start with just one capsule. I don't want people going in and starting with two or three. You're probably going to find that you just need one capsule. And then, you know what? Like maybe some people might end up finding that they need two or something. How do you know maybe it's like too much for you if you take two or three? Is if you're feeling more scattered than focused, that's probably like it's a little bit too much for me. Okay. Um, yeah, so we talked about sweet spot dose, men versus women. There are, if you are an ultra sensitive person, because I am a health practitioner, I work with people with a lot of very chronic issues and a lot of people in very sensitive bodies. A big issue we're seeing a lot within the last 4, 5 years, especially, is something called mast cell activation syndrome, where basically, like, the nervous system becomes allergic to stress and perceives everything around us as stress, whether that's light, water, certain foods, temperature, and we react. It can be skin rashes, it can be heart palpitations, it can be anxiety, fear, panic, gut issues, constipation, diarrhea. It can be mast cell issues can manifest in so many ways. Don't go self-diagnosing because that can be those symptoms can be other things as well. But if you know that you have MCAS and you know you are a very sensitive person, people will often ask me, like, I'm sensitive to everything. I can't even take supplements. How will I do with your medicine? Of course, I can't tell you. I don't know how you're going to do, but I can tell you that I was someone who struggled quite severely with MCAS, and microdosing with MicroFlow helped me. It was like I did so many things that really helped move the needle prior, and microdosing was the thing that really helped me like be free of that. And I was always fine. I was never too ultra sensitive to one capsule, but I have worked with some women who are. So what you can do is you can just open the capsule and start with like a quarter of the powder, or a half a capsule is probably, could be the right dose of someone who's super, super, super sensitive. And, this can be sprinkled into a tea, into a beverage mixed with water. It could be sprinkled onto food as well if you need it that way. I think it'll hit your system better in a beverage, but it could be placed on food. So we can only figure out our sweet spot dose through experimentation, and I hope you guys understand that message. When now that we're talking about opening a capsule, starting with a sprinkle, this is also something that people do when they dose their children and their teens. I am not your doctor. Just because I'm a practitioner does not mean I am your practitioner, right? Unless you're working with me. So nothing I am saying is medical advice. I cannot tell you what to do with your child, right? I'm not a prescribing physician. This is for information purposes only. I can share with you, though, that many of my clients, students, and community members and customers have used MicroFlow with their kids, probably more along like the teenage age realm, but to get them off Adderall and anxiety meds and just help their kid come back alive, just struggling with a lot of issues. So I always say, I can't tell you what your kid should be taking. I can't tell you a dose, but if they're a smaller human, you can open up the capsule and try something with lower dose and lighter, and the capsules can always be open. So I'll leave that there, okay? I will talk about some other sensitive times like pregnancy and breastfeeding. I'll address that in a little bit as well, which is one of my favorite things to talk about regarding microdosing. But what's most importantly next to talk about is we talked about the protocol, right? Actually, before we move on to the ritual of it all, let's answer your question. Do I have to dose forever? How long do I dose? Let's get that out of the way because that's definitely a most frequently asked question. Commit to 3 months. Don't expect, I had someone and like, I'm sorry if she's listening to this, not trying to call her out, but like I had a customer email us the other day. Most of the emails we get are like, I've never felt better in my life. I just took my first dose and like all these amazing things because a lot of people do feel the shifts immediately. I did my first dose, a lot of people do, okay? But that's not the case for everyone because these are microdoses that elicit, ignite micro changes over time. Don't expect a change overnight. Just because, I've had a lot of crazy things happen my first 3 months, but like maybe that's not your story. We cannot compare here. We cannot compare. And I had someone say, I tried one capsule and I didn't feel anything. So then I tried two capsules and I didn't feel anything. So then I switched to your other blend and tried one capsule and I didn't feel anything. And I tried two capsules and I didn't feel anything. Can I have my money back? So I'm like, wow, you're trying, first of all, what are you trying to feel? Because we're not supposed to be getting high, right? It sounded like she was very not into doing it with intention or with a ritual because a lot of what we're feeling is like, wow, we're in a situation and I reacted a little bit different than I would have in the past in a situation, in a conversation with a partner. Maybe it didn't get heated. Maybe I was able to pause, create some spaciousness, not react in the same old way I always have, react from a place of love, not get triggered in situations when I'm out and about and maybe a cashier or someone gives me a look and you realize, you know what, maybe they're just having a bad day. And right, like maybe we find ourselves reacting different in situations. And how are you going to know if the medicine's working for you if you're just like trying to feel like a high or something right away? So, number one, like she tried it 4 days and she wanted her money back. No, first of all, I'm going to tell you up front, I don't offer refunds. Okay. And I think in a matter of over 3 years of running MicroFlow, that might have been the first request for a refund. It might have been. So, I mean, it's not something we deal with very often, but we don't offer refunds, especially with the nature of the medicine. Okay. And you need to give it a chance and you need to work with the medicine. And the medicine is going to give back to you as much as you're giving to it. So, we're going to talk about the ritual of it all in a minute. But going back to how long do we dose, commit to those 3 months. And then people will say, some people out there will say, like, if you do 3 months, then you need to take a month off before you start again. And like, there's all these rules, right? I don't believe in the rules whatsoever. We dose based on our intuition. There aren't any safety concerns of like not taking a break between your protocols. Um, I didn't take any form of break, I think, for like at least a year. And my body actually didn't really need a lot of breaks. Now, there's other customers who dosed for 3 months. They had such incredible results, and they're like, I actually don't know if I ever need to dose again. Like, I feel like I received everything I need to receive and I'm good because the changes are long lasting with the microdose. When we're building those new neural pathways and those new neural networks, those are forever changes within our system. So it's not like you stop taking the medicine and you revert back to your old patterns, right? Like it is a it is a tool for change for forever. There's no way my patterns, my thoughts are ever going back to what they used to be. Like I am a new person. You rebirth yourself into something we can't go back. So some people are like, I dosed for 3 months. It was amazing. It changed my life and I'm good. And I'm like, that's great. Like that's good for you. Some people, they notice, great change with 3 months, but they're like, there's still a lot more. And for some people, like it takes longer. It might take 6 months to really get where they want to be, in quotes. Some people, they just keep noticing more and more and more shifts and changes as they dose longer. So some people might choose to dose, for a year or more long term, right? Some customers might dose for 3 months and then be like, I'm feeling intuitively called to take a little pause. Or maybe they dose for like 6 months, had a lot of great results, and they're like, my intuition is telling me it's time to take a little pause, take a little break. And then sometimes they come back like and order again a month later or 2 months later. So again, here is your permission slip to do what works for you. You can dose any way that your intuition is guiding you to dose. If that is long term, beautiful. Okay. Um, if that, I want to share a little story quick, but like I'm getting a FaceTime right now from my parents, which I am ignoring, but they are on a beautiful vacation right now that I booked for them, that I paid for, that I could have never dreamed of even doing this. Like honestly, you guys, like even a couple years ago, That's where I'm talking about like the things that the medicine has allowed for me. It was their Christmas gift. I purchased like them all new luggage and they're like, oh, it's so nice. Like they thought they were just getting new sets of custom luggage. And then I had them keep opening it, and inside were some other gifts until they got to the gift, and I wrote them a journal and I wrote them really beautiful notes, and I planned out this really luxurious 5-star trip that my parents would never plan for themselves. My parents have had a tough life, and they've given, 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 and it's finally their chance to receive. And I'm in a place where I can give, and I'm so grateful. But I booked them a limo from their house to the Chicago airport. They live in Wisconsin, first class flights, everything included. And they're staying at the Four Seasons in a really tropical, beautiful place. And it's just like all of the luxuries, Michelin star dining, spa treatments, like all of the things, room service, everything, And I'm like, it's just funny. And they're on their trip right now. So I know they're calling me to FaceTime me to tell me about the dinner they just went on. But I want to share that story with you right now because the microdosing literally allowed me to be able to have this life that like I was like afraid to buy groceries at the time that I started microdosing, right? Like it can change so much for us. And okay, I won't keep talking about myself, but it was just a very cute and timely story because I'm just very happy for them. Okay. I think you guys get the gist of you can dose on your own regimen, you can take pauses, but commit to 3 months up front because change does take time. Please, although you might feel amazing things immediately, you can't expect change overnight either. Okay? Um, I do want to talk about the rituals, the levels of microdosing, and then we're going to kind of segue into safety, legality, contraindications, and considerations, which is a very important part of this conversation. So when we're talking about the ritual, if you head to the dosing page on our website, and it's also included within the packaging when you receive your MicroFlow, this dosing ritual. So I have curated what's like a 5-step MicroFlow recommended microdosing ritual. It doesn't mean it takes you an hour. You can do this in 5 minutes, but we dose with intention. Okay. Again, we're working with consciousness. So, number one, we're always giving reverence, deep reverence, thanking the medicine and working with the medicine in gratitude. This is earth medicine. This is sacred medicine, right? We can't just be takers of the land and take, give it to me, give it all to me. We need to give our gratitude and our reverence back. This is a very, very sacred practice, and we need to treat it as such. So, first step is we thank the medicine. We have our capsule. I always hold it to my heart. And I just, wow, just thank you so much. What a gift it is to work with this medicine. What an opportunity it is to be in this body on this planet at this time for my soul to learn lessons and evolve and just have these beautiful 3D physical human experiences. And, thank you to the medicine for enhancing it and teaching me the lessons that my soul came here to experience. So tap into your gratitude. I always like to write a list of gratitude. Gratitude rewires your reality as well, changes your frequency. Okay, and then step 2 is we ask MicroFlow, call it by name, MicroFlow, please help me with. Get crystal clear. Nothing is too big here, guys. This is what I want to stress. Like, don't worry about your dreams, your goals, your ambitions, your desires, your wants, your needs. Nothing is too big. If it's a desire of you, it's within you. It's meant to be. Okay. So it's okay to like ask for, and when I'm talking about abundance, that can come in the form of money and business and opportunities and homes and cars and material things. But abundance is also an abundance of peace, abundance of time freedom. Um, just peace and ease, right? There's so many things that are abundance that are not connected to material, but the material is okay too. And so are all those other things. So get clear. For me, when I say step 2, MicroFlow, please help me with, it's usually please help me with today. Like, what do I need your support with today? I dosed this morning and I did, I ended up not recording this that I'm recording right now. It's nighttime, but I said, please help me today to speak the words during the class I'm going to record. Please help me speak exactly what any person tuning in needs to hear. Please help me connect into source consciousness, stay rooted in my body, be connected to my higher self, be a vessel of truth, of love, of hope, so I can record a really powerful and empowering and inspiring class that a lot of people are going to listen to. Like that was my please help me with today. Please help me be in a state of flow with communication, right? Next, we're saying MicroFlow, please help me in calling in. So for me, that's kind of like my bigger goals and desires. And you don't have to do what I do. You can make this your own flow. And I don't need to share everything I'm calling in. MicroFlow, please help me in releasing. So whether it's the scarcity programming, whether it's, please help me in releasing this like one specific pattern, or maybe it's more general. And you can do the same, you can ask this for the same things every day. You can switch it up, but get crystal clear. If you desire change in your life, ask for it. It's like when you're working with people can't read your minds, right? So ask the medicine to support you, and the medicine will support you. And then when you're having maybe challenges throughout your day and you need help, call on the medicine. Even if you took it in the morning, MicroFlow, please help provide some clarity in this situation, right? So we can be in relationship with the consciousness of this medicine at all times, even in the days that we're not dosing. And that last step, you can read this whole story on the website. The last step is, the last step is Pache Te Sava. It is a frequency, a language that I channeled. It's a big part of the origin story of MicroFlow. And I have the whole story listed on the website, so I'm not going to go into it right now, but it's a wild, beautiful story. And basically, Pache Te Sava translates into have it all, which is basically my understanding of heaven on earth. We came here to experience. Heaven is a vibration, right, that we can experience on earth, and we are allowed to. It's safe to. We came here to have it all, okay? So you can write down Pache Te Sava. This is also in the packaging. You can say it out loud. I just like to like seal my journal with Pache Te Sava with a little heart. You can chant it, you can hum it, you can sing it, and you don't have to. Like this is just I'm giving that gift to you because it's something that's been very powerful for me. Also, I like to activate the medicine. If you can do a meditation or a breath work or get out in nature, or turn on a really high vibe song and just like dance and get in your body, that's also great too. I say there's levels to microdosing. Level 1 would be like pop the pill, mindlessly go about my day. Like I said earlier, maybe you'll have a little bit of enhancement in your mood, or mental health. Maybe, right? Like probably a little bit, but it's not going to change your life. Like we need to work with intention. So level 2 of microdosing is like, maybe I'm not journaling and doing breath work and maybe you just don't necessarily have time that day, but you can take 30 seconds to pause, to breathe, to set an intention. You don't have to even write down the MicroFlow, please help me in calling, and please help me in releasing. What if you just set it in your heart before you took the capsule, right? That's beautiful too. I would say that's level 2 of microdosing. That's going to be so much more beneficial than mindless. Level 3 is when we start to even see more results. Writing pen to paper is really helpful for rewiring. There's a whole science behind it that we don't have time to fully, break down, but writing pen to paper in a journal is so powerful. So writing down your MicroFlow ritual, and then step 4 could be even taking it to the next level with combining it with like a breath work, with meditation, with a little dance, with a nature walk. But by levels, I mean like how much is going to work with you. So there's people that like just want to pop the pill. They're probably not going to get level 4 or 5 plus results, right? So that's really important to state. And then lastly, a question I get often is like, can I stop anytime? If I want to stop, do I have to wean off the medication? You can absolutely stop microdosing at any point. So if some wild reason, it's pretty rare that people would do this, but like you didn't want to dose the whole 3 months, you can just stop. It's all good. You don't have to wean. There's no like, you're not going to have any weird transition from dosing to not dosing. It's pretty cool. Like you don't have to wean, and you're not going to like experience any crazy symptoms when you stop. So you can stop anytime. You can dose for a day. You can dose for a week, you can dose for a month, you can dose for a year, you can dose for several years, and you can start and stop at any point. All right. We have a couple more things to talk about. We really do. So moving along into the next section, we're going to start to talk about some of the safety, legality, contraindications. Again, microdosing psilocybin is so safe. It is the safest substance to work with ever, period. Like that, it's just the truth. Okay. So, a lot of times people ask, is psilocybin addictive? Which is a great question. And no, there are no addictive properties of psilocybin. Psilocybin is actually used in medical situations and in therapeutic situations to treat addiction and to treat substance abuse. I don't know, a lot of people don't know that. The founder of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, actually got sober and came up with the entire AA framework by working with psilocybin. So, fun fact as well, but psilocybin microdosing is not addictive. In fact, most customers, whether, like for me, I said I healed a lifelong eating disorder in 3 months. That was not my intention when I started microdosing. It just happened. And for a lot of our customers, they reach out and they're like, wow, I just like stopped drinking or I just stopped smoking cannabis. That wasn't my goal going into it, but I have no desire to reach for that stuff anymore. So it really does help with things that we're kind of addicted to, even if we don't realize it. So I probably get a message like that every single day. Like, wow, I don't have any desire for alcohol or marijuana or anything like that anymore. So that is pretty cool. I want to talk about medications because this is important. If you are on SSRIs, benzos, or other psych meds, you do need to have a lot of discernment going into working with psilocybin as microdoses. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions. I recommend, and this is if you go to the FAQ section on our website, I have this linked there as well. I really trust the Microdosing Institute. They're really great for medical research about studies about medication combinations with psilocybin. So it's www.microdosinginstitute.org. When you go there in the search bar, type in medication, and then this article is going to pop up, and it's going to be a whole different list of like medications that are safe or not safe to mix with psilocybin. Okay, there are a lot of SSRIs and psych meds, antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds that the Microdosing Institute considers safe to combine with psilocybin, but I personally don't consider it safe. So I'm giving you my take as well. I say go to that site with extra, with like get their advice because, they're experts as well. But I do have a different opinion on all of this. I believe that we should always have a weaning plan in place before we even make the decision to start microdosing, even if the medication, if it's an SSRI, even if it says if it's safe to combine, okay? And I'm primarily here talking about psych meds. I'm not necessarily talking about like thyroid meds and stuff like that. You can read more about that. I'm talking about psych meds. I believe that we should not combine psych meds like SSRIs, benzos, for more than 60 days with microdosing. So if you have a weaning plan in place, that means that for 60 days, you have like 2 months. Now, it doesn't have to be a hard cutoff. Sometimes it takes people longer. This is just my recommended advice. You can use the microdoses to start helping you wean. So for example, if you are on 25 milligrams of a particular medication, this is not medical advice. I'm giving you examples. You're going to have to speak with your prescribing physician and figure this out on your own unless you're actually working with me. I'm not your doctor. I am not a doctor, right? So I'm just giving you an example. Let's say Sally is on 25 milligrams of a medication, okay? Wellbutrin. She wants to start microdosing. She doesn't feel comfortable weaning. Some people actually wean off their medication first and then start microdosing, so that's definitely an option. But some people will say, okay, I'm starting microdosing. This is my day one of microdosing. I'm going to go down to 20 milligrams of Wellbutrin instead of 25, and I'm going to stay at 20 milligrams for like 1 or 2 weeks while I'm microdosing about, 4 days a week. Now you could, if you're going through like a heavy wean, say you were cutting way more, like if you're cutting way more than 5 mg or 10 mg at a time, right? Like maybe you might have to microdose every day for a couple weeks without taking those 2 days off. That would be the only time I would recommend not taking a couple days off. But that's an entirely separate conversation that, again, you could have with your prescribing physician. And, if you do have like an open-minded doctor, of course, not all of them are going to be open to this, but there are a lot of therapists and prescribing physicians, if they do align, that are open to working with you through this. I also have other contacts that, could help. So there's that. And I can help too if you end up working with me in my programs. So say Sally then gets into week 2 of microdosing and she cuts, or maybe she stays the cuts for 5 mg for 2 weeks. Maybe then starting on week 3, she cuts another 5 mg. So now she's down to 15 mg of Wellbutrin and she's still microdosing. And maybe she does that for a couple weeks. And then, 4 weeks in, she cuts down to 10 mg, right? You can just kind of titrate your dose down while you microdose. And then ideally, we'd want to do the math of cutting. So, like, hopefully, once we get to that 60-day mark, you're off your meds, you're feeling good. The majority of people, the microdosing really helps them have a very easeful weaning off medications without all the side effects that can come when we're not using something supportive like microdosing. So that's just an example. You can completely wean off your meds before you even start, or you can use the microdoses to support the weaning if it's a safe situation, to support the weaning process. And ideally, we're trying to be off combining meds and SSRIs at about the 60-day mark. Now, if you end up having to go a little bit longer and you're feeling good, it's probably, okay to do that. That's how I work with clients, and that's how we do it. And I usually add in some other, support with mineral support and some cellular membrane healing support. Like I usually can throw in some other things as well to help the weaning process too. So there are ways to go about it, but there are contraindications and you need to figure that out on your own. You need to assume self-responsibility if you are going into a microdosing protocol. This is, you need to be a responsible adult human and figure out if this is right for you. And if it is right for you, what that looks like if you are on medications. I can't be responsible. MicroFlow is not responsible. At checkout, you're signing off agreements. So this is a you decision. So use discernment. I could say that in all the years and in all the people I've worked with, it's been a very successful, great, wonderful process, but we do have to focus on being discerning, right? And just like focus on safety as well. All right. So other contraindications aside from specific psych medicines, like I guess SSRIs, for example, is I probably wouldn't recommend that someone doses with psilocybin if they are actively manic, or suffering from like schizophrenia or like extreme hypertension or history of stroke. They say there is, research that, psilocybin can increase blood pressure. Probably doesn't. That's, there's so many root causes as to why someone has blood pressure issues. So that's a whole separate conversation. I do have to mention that. But I would say, if someone is actively manic, I would not pursue working with medicine. Now, I do have a lot of customers who have had the bipolar diagnosis. They have been on meds. They have successfully weaned off their meds with the help of MicroFlow, and they've never had a manic episode again. And they were also working in my programs and doing other things, healing their brain, their body from the ground up, and parasite cleansing and all the things too that can contribute to some of these more severe mental health conditions. And then I know a couple people too who have gone down to they were on maybe like 4 meds. I have a cousin who has been able to wean down to a very light dose of her medication and still combine it with microdosing. And that's how she feels best, and her support system and her family feels best if she stays on a very light dose of her medication, but still getting the benefits of microdosing. So again, these are all very personal decisions, but there are contraindications with like severe personality type disorders, that might not be the best choice for someone to microdose. I've had people ask me like if I have a history of, I've never had symptoms, but I have, a sibling with schizophrenia. What's your advice? Again, I can't provide medical advice. I just can't. It's not legal. I can say that like the research out of an abundance of caution usually recommends that like maybe someone should consider not doing that. My experience has been that I've had a lot of customers do really well if they've had like a sibling or a parent. These aren't big doses that are like literally taking us out of our conscious, they are taking us out of our conscious reality, going to the subconscious, but it's not like taking us to a new dimension, right? This isn't a trip. Um, so typically, like microdoses are safe, but you do need to use discernment there too. I can't say what's safe for you, but you do need to just consider family history too. All right. And then I want to talk about mold pregnancy breastfeeding because a lot of people probably have curiosity around, can I microdose if I'm pregnant, if I'm breastfeeding? The short answer, which is so annoying, is I cannot give medical advice, right? So there actually is not modern research. You have to understand who funds research, right? So research happens, um, it has to be funded, and there usually typically has to be a benefit of like something that's going to be sold, and this isn't really sold publicly, right? So there's not going to be research on microdosing and pregnancy and breastfeeding. If you're looking for me to send you like a PubMed article, like I'm just not going to do that. You can search on your own and you're going to find very, very limited research, and it's all going to say like, there's not, use your own discernment, like we don't really know. Okay. What I can tell you, because I have studied indigenous cultures and plant medicines from like through the lens of like how our ancestors have used it and how people have used it in tribes for thousands and thousands of years. Psilocybin has been used for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years medicinally in indigenous cultures, often used as like a rite of passage and medicinally while women are pregnant. They say that would say that the psilocybin would help facilitate a healthier brain in the baby, higher levels of consciousness in the baby, help the baby have better emotional resilience. So again, I'm not telling you to microdose if you're pregnant. Like the modern research will say don't do that because we don't know. This has to be a decision you make on your own. All I can share with you is we have had customers, some take a break while they get pregnant. They're like, you know what, I'm just going to take a break. And some really tap in with their intuition, people who are, more connected to that intuition, connect with their baby and feel very called to and intuitively led to microdose, to continue microdosing throughout pregnancy. So I can't say what's safe for you, but I can say I've seen a lot of beautiful experiences with women microdosing while pregnant. So use your discernment. Breastfeeding, I have most of my students and clients have leaned into microdosing while breastfeeding. They said, especially those who had children prior and hadn't microdosed, just had such an incredible, beautiful, easeful postpartum microdosing throughout breastfeeding. Great. Everything was great with the baby. So, again, not medical advice. I can only provide examples of people within my community, how they've responded to it, and it's been really amazing. So, that has to be a personal choice. I just like to remind people that women in indigenous cultures used psilocybin throughout periods of pregnancy and breastfeeding very safely. And they thought not only was it safe, but also beneficial. So that's not my medical advice. It's just kind of like the truth of history. And that's where I will leave that conversation. And then I want to talk about mold briefly. So, we're working with a fungus with the psilocybin, and then a lot of people, if they're on a healing journey, a lot of people have like dealt with mold poisoning, damaged water, damaged buildings, and it's really affected their health. And they feel hesitant about working with a fungus, right? Which, like, yeah, I get it. It makes sense. But what people typically don't understand is that being exposed to mold, it is a big deal. Absolutely. I've been there, and it definitely contributed to a lot of my chronic illness issues. However, mold typically is the tipping point. So usually it's people who've had decades of unprocessed emotions and trauma, and they've been undernourished. Maybe they also had an eating disorder or ate a bunch of processed foods or underate, because as women, we've been conditioned to eat 1,200 calories and over-exercise and cut out fat. And like the body doesn't have the capacity to deal with things like toxins because it has no energy, right? To detox. So like there's usually so many things: dysregulated circadian rhythm, too much stress with emotional stress, with relationships, work, too much time scroll. Like there's so many stressors, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. People might be on pharmaceuticals, and people just might be so disconnected, just so dysregulated from a blood sugar perspective that we get a mold exposure, and that could be like the tipping point. It's not the whole root cause. So mold is a big issue, but it's not the only issue. A lot of times the people that do become more ill with mold toxicity, it's because they were already dealing with a quite dysregulated nervous system. Okay, so if we are using the microdoses to support, and the mold itself, toxic black mold, mold you're being exposed to in a building, the main thing it does is it ruins the brain and it breaks down the nervous system. It creates so many neurological and nervous system issues. So if we're using microdosing to ignite neurogenesis and rebuild new healthy neural networks in the brain and in the nervous system, create more capacity within the nervous system, to allow our body to feel safe, because the ultimate thing that microdosing psilocybin does is signal safety to the body. It signals safety to the body. We can't heal if we don't feel safe to heal. Our body, our bodies are self-healing machines that want to be in their optimal state, but they can only enter that self-healing state of, healing and regeneration and renewal when the body feels safe enough to do so. The body is not healing and regenerating when it's worried about just surviving, when it's stuck and locked in hypervigilance and survival mode. So the microdosing helps signal safety to the body, rebuilds the nervous system, and helps us so we can actually start to detox mold. Because a lot of people can't even go into detoxification when they're stuck in survival mode. The body doesn't detox when it's prioritizing survival. It's prioritizing survival, right? So I have had endless success with so many students, clients, myself, and other customers who are like, wow, this is a thing that actually finally helped me heal from mold toxicity. And our blends are so pure. They do not contain any mycotoxins, heavy metals, contaminants. We get everything third-party lab tested. I'll talk about my blends in just a second, but they are so pure and they're not contributing to your mold toxin load. Okay, so having mushrooms does not create fungal overgrowths in the body. That's just like a whole separate conversation. So yes, you can absolutely microdose if you are dealing with mold toxicity. And this is really helpful for a lot of practitioners to know as well, who are recommending microdosing to their patients, to their clients. It's been very, very, very helpful for overcoming the neurological and nervous system damage that the toxic mold did in the first place. All right, so I'm going to start to talk about my blends, because there's some things I'm going to hop over just because this is getting kind of long. And that's okay. I was going to talk about how, microdosing isn't just for our mental health and physical health. There's never been a time on this planet at this point in time where we've talked more and more and more about mental health. Everyone's talking about mental health, yet people are more mentally unwell than ever before. So obviously what we're doing, having crisis hotlines and safe spaces and pharmaceuticals, like it's not working. So we need another avenue. And this is the future of medicine, but not just for mental health, for physical health too. So I'm not going to get into all of it. I'm just going to say very briefly that I have seen wonderful hormonal success with so many women, because one of the root causes of hormonal imbalance, we have to realize hormone issues are not root cause issues. Hormone issues are downstream issues. If we want to fix our hormones, we need to address the real issues upstream, being nervous system dysregulation, unprocessed emotions, mismanaged stress, trauma, and then yes, like undernourishment, disrupted circadian biology, blood sugar imbalances, all of those definitely play a role, high toxin load. But so much of it is nervous system dysregulation. Like that's probably always part of hormonal dysfunction. So when we start to regulate the nervous system and cue safety to the body, the downstream reflection, the effect is that our hormones are able to start to heal and to balance, right? So that's been really beautiful, especially for women struggling with like fertility issues, trying to conceive. The body can't conceive if it doesn't feel safe enough to bring new life into this earth. So there are so many what women now call their microflow babies because they genuinely say that microflow played the greatest role in allowing them to get pregnant when nothing they were doing before was helping. They were told they were infertile, and working with the beautiful sacred medicine of microflow really cued that safety to their body and helped them create emotional regulation, nervous system resilience, which was reflected in better fertility. So I'm going to leave that conversation there. There's so much I could get into with the physical aspect of how microdosing can help our physiology in so many ways. But what I want to talk about is microflow. What are my blends all about? Why are they so special? How do you use them? And that will be the end of this class. So stick with me. We're almost there. My microflow blends, you have to remember, I am a industry leading root cause health practitioner. I understand the role that toxins play in dis-ease, right? So I'm not going to create a company, and I'm working with MicroFlow every day. Like they are pure. They are so clean. They are so pure. And that is our number one value is purity of these blends. So they're the purest, cleanest, most high vibrational microdosing supplements on the market, point blank. Like I have never heard of anyone who goes through the rigorous level of what we do from an energetic standpoint of clearing the medicine, infusing the medicine with Reiki, and doing third-party lab testing. Our mushrooms are grown. So our mushrooms are grown by a childhood friend of mine on an organic farm in Oregon. And with all beautiful organic growing processes, no chemicals, no pesticides, nothing, none of that crap is used, purely organically grown. We have frequency music playing, very high vibrational too, because that's super important. And then my blends also have lion's mane mushroom, which is not a psychedelic mushroom. It's a functional mushroom that's really helpful for the brain and the nervous system. And I source the purest. And then one of the blends, Exude, has cacao. One of the blends, Surrender, has rose petal. And then one of the blends, Theta, has pure blue lotus flower sourced directly from Egypt. All of the blends have psilocybin. All of the blends have lion's mane. And then there's a beautiful herb that gives each blend a different energetic signature. And I source the purest organic herbal additives that we add into the microflow. And those are tested for mycotoxins, heavy metals, chemical contaminants, and we do third-party lab testing. So they are super, super, super pure. And I stand by that till the end of time. That will never, ever, ever change. It is our number one value. And then again, there's a lot of people that come to us who say like, oh my gosh, I've microdosed before and I've never had an experience in the past with the blends that I've used like I'm having with MicroFlow. A huge part of that as well is the energetic signature. They're very high vibrational. I am a very high vibrational being. I kind of dedicate my life to like I don't watch the news. I don't take in a lot of like, well, it doesn't matter about me because it's not me, but each blend is Reiki infused. So each batch that we get, I personally still Reiki infuse every single batch, every single capsule, every single grain of powder inside every single capsule is elevated energetically and consciously and is infused with a beautiful Reiki healing energy. So that is also the difference that a lot of people feel. We use absolutely zero fillers, preservatives, or stabilizers. There are only 3 ingredients per capsule, nothing else. So for example, Exude, it's psilocybin, it's lion's mane, it's cacao. No preservatives, no filler, no stabilizer. So also you have to understand that it means that our supplements do have a shelf life because um, supplements that are good for 5+ years, that's because there's obviously some form of preservative in that. We don't use preservatives because they can be damaging to the health, and I don't want them in my product, and I don't consume them, so I'm definitely not going to put them in our product. So the shelf life to MicroFlow, I would say use within a year if you can. They're probably good for like maybe 2 years, but the medicine is also going to lose its potency the longer it sits, so that can be a possibility. Um, Okay, in addition to, organic, zero filler, third-party lab tested, Reiki infused. Obviously, we're female founded, female led. I mean, I started everything truly on my own, and now we have a very teeny tiny, beautiful, high vibe team. We all have the same life mission, earth mission, and our goal really is to reach and help as many people as possible with this really sacred medicine while still preserving the reverence, not like, again, using it as like in replacement of just a pharmaceutical. And like, we want people to understand the reverence for this beautiful earth medicine that we've been given, and work with the medicine respectfully and lovingly in a way that not only helps them, but helps the entire collective. Because the more that we can upgrade the technology of our cells, and that's what this medicine does, the more light that our body can hold, and the more we're anchoring in light in our body. That's what a light worker is, someone who can anchor in more light into their body. The more light we're actually anchoring into this planet. There is a ripple effect collectively, right? The macrocosm is a reflection of the microcosm, as within, so without. As we heal, as we upgrade, as we up level, we are creating that in the world around us. This is a collective revolution, and that is a core through line of our goal and our vision and our mission and our values, our core values at MicroFlow. It very is all about respect, reverence, and collective healing. We are here to birth through a new paradigm, a new earth, one where people are prosperous based on health, based on well-being, based on abundance available to all. And this medicine really is that. It is that tool that helps us recognize it, achieve it, and spread it, and creates that beautiful, beautiful ripple. So talking back about my blends, if you go to the MicroFlow website, we have 3 blends at this point in time when I am recording in February of 2025. Well, we might have something new coming, but it's actually going to be for something a little bit different. So don't hold out on that, because these blends that we've got are sticking with us. Exude and Surrender are our microdosing blends. Those are the ones formulated. Each capsule has 100 milligrams or 0.1 grams of psilocybin. Those are what you would use like for your daily microdoses. I formulated these blends to be used. They're sold in a bundle. So you want to buy, if you're brand new, I recommend going for the MicroFlow microdosing bundle. And they help you integrate and heal the inner yin and yang, the inner masculine and feminine. It really helps you balance your feminine and masculine energy. So both of the blends help you. All of the benefits we've talked about today, both Exude and Surrender, embody all of those benefits, from the physiological benefits to the mental benefits, cognition, right, to the consciousness and spiritual benefits. Both Exude and Surrender will give you all of those benefits. They both facilitate like brain-heart coherence, okay? And then the difference is Exude. Please know also, MicroFlow, these are the very first cycle syncing blends, cycle syncing microdosing blends on the market. No one else has done what I have created. So I'm not saying that these are only for women. I'm going to talk about men, and I'm going to talk about women. I'm going to talk about women in their reproductive years and women in their postpartum years, or I'm sorry, postmenopause years. We'll talk about that in a second. So my blends are formulated for all humans, both men and women. The cycle syncing aspect that I created with the blends, how we use when we use each blend specifically, the cycle syncing aspect is for women in their reproductive years. But we have thousands of men that dose and women of all ages and stages. So I'm going to talk about the cycle syncing aspect first. Women are cyclical beings, okay? I always like to say men are the sun, women are the moon. Just like the sun rises and the sun sets in the same manner every 24 hours, that's actually how a man's hormonal patterns operate, and they have very little shifting throughout their life. Their hormones are very the same. Everything is regulated by their circadian rhythm. Women have a circadian rhythm as well. However, women in their reproductive years have a secondary internal biological clock that really like helps determine metabolic shifts, cognition shifts, hormonal shifts, libido shifts, right? Our desire to, when we have more creative energy, when we want to be more social, like women, our brain shifts about 30% throughout the course of every single month. So we're cyclical beings, just like planet Earth goes through spring, summer, autumn, and winter every single year. Earth goes through 4 seasons. Women go through 4 distinct seasons every single month within our own body. We are literally nature embodied. So men are like the sun, women are like the moon. If you step outside every night, you look up at the night sky, you're going to see the moon shift into different sizes. You know, the moon is waning, the moon is waxing. We see full moon into new moon throughout the course of like about a month. 29 and a half days is the lunar cycle. The moon is different every single day, right? And that's how our hormonal patterns shift throughout the course of a month as well. When we can learn how to attune to those energetic shifts, those inner seasons, we start fighting against our body, we start working with our body, and it just takes that nervous system regulation to the next level. It allows us to attune with our natural state of cyclical being in a whole different manner. So I created these blends to help that for women in their reproductive years. Exude is the blend with cacao. Cacao is an outwardly expressive blend. Again, it creates that brain-heart coherence, but it's more of like that outward expression blend. So think of like springtime, things are bright, things are blooming, the sun is coming out. Summertime, we've got an abundance of food growing. People want to be out socializing with their friends in the sun. It's that outward expression. And we take exude in our follicular and ovulatory phases. So if you don't know what that means, you can very easily look this up. Your follicular phase starts when you finish bleeding, when you finish menstruation, and you start to feel that energy again. You start to emerge from the darkness, right? That's your follicular phase. And you take exude until through ovulation. Ovulation is peak hormones. You usually feel like your best. And then after ovulation, you enter what's called the luteal phase. And that's after ovulation until you start your bleed. That's when we start to go more inward. And that blend to use during that time is surrender. So it has rose petal. So it has the psilocybin and lion's mane, but it has the softness of rose petal that really, really, really brings us more in that inward expressive energy, like that inner autumn season and that inner winter. So we take surrender through our luteal phase and through menstruation. So this is all outlined on our website. This is outlined in the insert in the packaging that you'll get. If you don't understand cycle syncing at this point, don't let this stop you. It's okay. These aren't rigid rules. There's no like wrong way to do it. Some people honestly do just choose to like skip the syncing aspect and dose intuitively, and you're welcome to do that as well. It's not going to be bad if you don't cycle sync if you're a woman in your reproductive years, but cycle syncing the blends can make the experience even better and bring you like closer home to yourself and your cyclical nature, which is like what the divine feminine is. So it's a really beautiful, beautiful experience. Rose is one of my favorite feminine medicines. Rose petal is the highest vibrational frequency. It holds the highest vibrational frequency of any single plant on planet Earth. So much so that it's basically the tangible form of what the frequency of love is. So when we're working with rose petal infused into the psilocybin, it's really helping us with like self-love and just oneness, unity, consciousness. It's amazing. So both blends are so beautiful. They have the same exact dose of psilocybin. The energetics are just slightly different, and most people like love working with both of them. Now, you can order just one blend or the other blend on our website. If you're brand new, I definitely recommend starting with both blends. It helps. I created this medicine. It came through as that download to help all humans, men and women, balance our internal yin and yang energies, masculine and feminine energies. And when we do that, we also heal the planet. So I think it's important to work with both. They're beautiful. They're intended to be used together. A question I get often is like when people get the bundle, do I take one of each when I start? No. Again, like it's not bad. Nothing bad's going to happen, but we work with one at a time. So even if you had to take two capsules, if you found two capsules to be your sweet spot and you were working with Exude, you would take two of Exude. So you can cycle sync the blends. And then for men or for women who do not have a cycle, whether, maybe they had a hysterectomy and had their ovaries removed, or they're no longer cycling, they're in their menopause, wise woman era, you can sync the blends to the lunar phases. Okay. So men and postmenopausal women generally love this. This is outlined on our website, outlined in the instructions in the packaging. You would take Exude while the moon is waxing through the full moon. So it's like as everything is getting bigger and brighter, right? And then you would take Surrender while the moon is waning through the new moon as everything's getting darker and littler. So you can do lunar phase syncing. Every human can do that. And if you want to just dose based on your intuition, like I woke up today, I'm feeling intuitively called to work with Exude today. Like, go for it. You do what works for you. I don't want the cycle syncing aspect to be too confusing, but it's actually very simple. It's like half the month we work with one blend and then we switch to the other blend for the other half of the month. And that would be the same for the lunar phases as well. It's like half the month you're working with one blend and half the month you switch to the other. Our microdosing bundle, so you can do them. The standard bundles have 30 capsules per bottle, and then you can also double your orders to 60 capsules per bottle. So if you are dosing at home, if it's like you and your spouse, you'd probably want to start with the double order. So you guys each have enough to get through your initial like 3-month dosing commitment, right? So you can order the 30 capsules, that's the standard, or you can upgrade to the 60 capsules per bottle. But the standard MicroFlow microdosing bundle is 30 capsules of Exude and 30 capsules of Surrender, 60 capsules total. So let's do the math together, okay? If you are dosing 4 days a week, if you're following 4 days on, 3 days off, 60 capsules divided by 4 days a week means that the bundle will last you 15 weeks. So that's over 3 months, right? If you're dosing 5 days a week, 60 capsules divided by 5 would last you 12 weeks, which is 3 months. So this isn't, and it depends because there are going to be people then, like if you ended up being one of the people where you find 2 capsules is your sweet spot, you're obviously going to go through the blends a little bit quicker than 3 months or 15 weeks. So people will ask me, how long is this going to last? You have to understand, like, I can't tell you that. I don't know how many days a week you're dosing. You could be dosing 1 day a week. You could be dosing 5 days a week, right? I don't know what your sweet spot dose is. Maybe it's just 1 capsule, or maybe you find it to be 2 capsules, or maybe 3. Like, that's pretty rare, but so we don't say like this is a 3-month, this is going to last you 3 months. Like it probably will, but that depends on obviously the factors we just discussed. The last thing I want to talk about regarding our blends is our blend Theta. So I launched Theta about 6 months after launching Exude and Surrender. Theta is our stronger blend. Each capsule of Theta, so Theta is psilocybin, lion's mane, and blue lotus flower. Blue lotus is such a special, incredible, high vibrational, sacred medicine on its own. This medicine's insane. But Theta has 250 milligrams of psilocybin per capsule, or 0.25 grams. So it's about 2.5 times stronger than the Exude and Surrender microdosing capsules. So taking 1 capsule of Theta, that could still be considered like a stronger microdose for some people. And some people do. One of my best friends actually microdoses with Theta. It's kind of crazy. And she does great with it. Some of our male customers, some of them I know of, microdose with Theta. So, 250 milligrams of psilocybin would still be considered a microdose. You could, if you end up finding that like you would need 3 capsules of Exude and Surrender, maybe you would prefer to microdose with theta. That's pretty rare. I formulated theta to have deeper experiences, to help facilitate deeper healing experiences, whether you want to use it. And the full theta dose is 1 gram, which is 4 capsules of theta. So, I mean, you can take 1 gram to have a little stronger microdose. You can take 2 grams and go for a really beautiful hike and be one with nature. But taking 4 capsules, which is 1 gram of psilocybin, it's still not going to be a journey or a trip. It typically takes like 2, 3, 4, 5 grams to get to that. 1 gram is going to be a deeper experience in the body, more like heightened, but you're not going to be tripping by any means. So I use it for people before a really intentional breathwork ceremony, before maybe a really special massage. Maybe you're hiking in Joshua Tree or Sedona in a really special place. Maybe you want to use it to like brainstorm, download your business plan for the year. Like there's lots of different ways you can work intentionally with theta. When you purchase theta, you'll get an automated email where you get access to my theta ceremonies. So I have done several theta ceremonies pre-recorded. There are 4. So the full 1 gram dose of theta, if you take the 4 capsules, it typically, like, the experience lasts about an hour. You'll feel it for about, oh my gosh, not an hour, 4 hours. So I formulated these 4-hour experiences. If you don't want to do it on your own, you can press play and have a guide, me there with you from start to finish, where I guide you through taking the dose with intention, setting really beautiful intentions. And then we get into like a prep work meditation, body scan, and then we get into transformational rebirthing breath work, like a 90-minute ceremony followed by 90 minutes of ecstatic dance. And I'm just there with you, guiding you through the whole thing. So if you do purchase theta, you get access to all my pre-recorded theta ceremonies. I definitely recommend microdosing. If you're brand new, start with Exude and Surrender, start with the microdoses. And, maybe at 1 month in, you want to try a deeper experience. Maybe it's at 3 months. Maybe you don't want to try a deeper experience ever. Or maybe it's like, do it when you feel ready. Again, that's an intuitive ping to know when you're ready. But you can purchase the MicroFlow Ultimate Bundle as well if you think that's something you're going to feel called to, where it's Exude, Surrender, and Theta. And again, every Theta purchase comes with my ceremony, so you always have access to that for free. And then regarding, how to store MicroFlow, just not like in a window. We don't want to store it like directly in the sun. They come in glass amber bottles. So, the amber tries to keep a little bit of the light out, being the darker glass bottles, but store it out of direct sunlight or like a direct heat source. I just store mine in my pantry or by my other supplements. So that's totally sufficient. You could have it on a counter as long as it's not like, so you remember to take it, as long as it's not directly beaming at a sun source or a hot heat source, right? Like on the stovetop or something, right? So just common sense there. And a big question I want to answer before I close out is, can I travel with the blends? So MicroFlow, when you get your blends, you will see that there's psilocybin is not listed on the bottles, right? For discretion purposes. I guess I never even talked about legality today. I kind of forgot that part, but psilocybin is not legal everywhere. And we ship everywhere. We've figured out a way to do this and have had absolutely zero issues. We have psilocybin is not listed on our bottles, on our website, or in the packaging for discretion purposes. They go through customs. You can travel with them. And again, always do your own research, but police dogs and are not trained to sniff psilocybin. So when all of my customers travel, they just put them in their carry-on and their purse and you're all good. So yes, you can travel with them. That's the reason why if you get your bottle and it just says lion's mane and cacao on the Exude bottle, or lion's mane and rose petal on the Surrender bottle, or lion's mane and blue lotus on the Theta bottle, psilocybin is in there, but we don't list it to keep everything safe for you, safe for shipping. Makes sense, right? So that's what I have to say about that. I've traveled internationally, domestically, zero issues, all good. People typically ask about drug testing as well. 99% of drug tests do not test for mushrooms or psilocybin. So I can't tell you, like, maybe you're getting a very, very, very special panel and they're testing something different. Like, there is a drug test out there that could potentially test for psilocybin, but that's not what most people are getting at like a normal panel to like get a job or if you have to get retested for work. But the best way to know is, I guess, figure out what you're getting tested for. But large doses of psilocybin get metabolized out of your system in about 24 hours. So it's probably pretty rare that a microdose would even be detected. Or if you're going for a drug test, like, don't dose for a week to be extra cautious, or a few days, right? So that's what I have to say about that. But again, always use your own discernment. And I am going to close this off and leave you with a couple of my favorite Terence McKenna quotes. First of all, to order, I'm not going to share the screen because it's kind of getting too late, but very easy. Go to www.microflowhealing.com. That's our website. And spend time on the website. Like, I share a lot more information there. There's a page where you can learn, and there's so much like details about each and every blend. And there's a page about me, our founder. There's a dosing page. Go to the dosing page if you need a refresher on all of this, okay? So that's the site. And then again, follow MicroFlow on Instagram, MicroFlow Healing at microflow.healing. You can follow me on Instagram, my personal account, to continue to learn more about what I do at It's Christy Nault, ITSCHRISTYNAULT. Check out my personal website, christynault.com, to learn about all of my root cause healing programs. And I facilitate medicine healing retreats. I actually have one coming up. I have a couple coming up this year. So check out my site if you're interested in like doing the work, right? I talk about remineralizing, stabilizing blood sugar, circadian biology, fixing your nourishment, healing your pelvic floor. Your pelvic floor is the root of your nervous system, opening those drainage pathways, right? Making sure our colon is supported, liver, lymphatic system, kidneys, glymphatic system, parasite cleansing, detoxification, like all those things. Hormone Glow Up is my signature root cause healing program where I help people heal from chronic conditions, or people who are not chronically ill, who just want to feel their best. That's the best place. We infuse microdosing into all the work, lots of somatic work, breath work, subconscious work, ancestral work, all infused into there as well. So if you're interested in going beyond just the microdosing, I've got lots of things out there for you. You can find it all on my personal website as well. And then the two websites interconnect. So you can just explore that on your own. But I want to leave you with my favorite, or maybe a couple of my favorite Terence McKenna quotes. Terence McKenna was an ethnobotanist, a mystic. He really championed the responsible use of psychedelics as medicine. And he passed, I think, in 2000, quite before his time. And he's kind of a leading voice now in the psychedelic space. So he says, psychedelics are illegal, not because a loving government is concerned that you may jump out of a third-story window. Psychedelics are illegal because they dissolve opinion structures and culturally laid down models of behavior and information processing. They open you up to the possibility that everything you know is wrong, which that's where the legal stuff comes in. Mushrooms are not illegal because they're dangerous. They're illegal because we live in a society where the current powers that be want to keep people suppressed, shackled, in fear, in survival mode, right? Because they are easier to control that way. And these powers that currently be are all about mass control. So psychedelics help us deprogram those deep programs and realize that everything's a freaking lie and we are creators and we can create the life of our dreams and we don't have to be restricted by all of the things we're told, even within the medical system, that conditions that don't have cures. Well, that's false, because I've helped thousands of people heal from conditions we're told don't have cures. Me, myself, I healed my body of endometriosis, autoimmunity. We're told there's not cures. That's false. I've helped people heal from everything, including cancers, MS, like, and so much of the roots of these illnesses, of these diseases, is disharmony and dysfunction within the nervous system and subconscious. So this is where microdosing really comes into play. Terence McKenna also says, what psychedelics do is pull the rug out from under your carefully constructed worldview and show you that reality is far more mysterious, far more complex, and far more alive than you ever imagined. So I'm going to leave this here. I hope you enjoyed this class. I hope you learned a lot. You can just scroll down and you'll see the summary with timestamps if you want to come back to watch a certain part. And you'll also see the transcription, so you can read through if you don't want to watch this whole video again. Make sure you're following us on Instagram. Check out our website. Share this with friends. Let's create this big tsunami of light on this planet together. We are here to co-create the golden age of heaven on earth. So much love to you all. Again, thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon.